changes that would give you completely different numbers as far as year-to-date budget reporting units. And so we work with the clerk's office. We're both on the same page as to what reports show what, and as far as interpretation of and what numbers are included. And so we feel confident moving forward that won't be an issue. And we put some checks and balances in place on both sides, I believe, that will help correct that issue. You kind of want to switch to new software. There's always things that pop up. But yes, on the right column of both of the revenue sheets, that right side is the actual projection for next fiscal year at the 90%.
I mean, the documents are there. I could go back and look, but I haven't done that yet. How do your projections compare last year?
A little bit. In special revenue, definitely less.
Like $1 million less, $10 million less?
Well, 626 is an absolute no.
Right.
And that's on the Oklahoma City, and then you factor in the 90%. So you're probably...
Well, the 90%.
Hold on, let me
last year.
Yeah, hold on a second. What we're... yeah, you're probably close to $1 billion.
Less this year.
Yeah,
but the majority, 70% of that is Oklahoma City.
I'd say realistically, if you just look straight revenue, between the 626 and probably 800,000. It's hard because a lot of those, special revenue, it's a little hard to project because we don't know what the DOC backup numbers are going to be. So for the most part, they kind of seem to fluctuate with the amount of funding that DOC has available, time to pull and pay, and so we can play a lot of averages there. And two, it kind of becomes a guessing game because not all their checks come in the month in which they're due. They might be a month behind. They might get known 1 month, 2 in the next month, and so we try to, especially as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year, to make sure that we're on top. And if it gets deposited a month or a day or two after the end of the month, that we still appropriate with that month's revenues where it should have been due, so we don't get out of whack. On the service fee side, a lot of those are driven by levels of service. That's where the court clerk fees come in. It's under our service fee account. And as you know that's a roller coaster. So you kind of put a lot of averages there. And so it kind of just depends. But yeah, I think service fee wise, I would suspect with the 90%, it was about $400,000 less. If I had to guesstimate truly what the revenues might be for the fiscal year in those categories, probably a little bit under. But just for example, for the last 5 years, it was 3.5, then 4, then 4.6, then back to 4.
So the difference is somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.2 to 1.4 million down that you're projecting this year versus what you projected last year.
I think that's probably probably close. Not taking the 90% into account, I'd say probably $1 million, give or take 100,000.
On the court process, because I went back and watched the meeting. I had doctor's appointments that I had to go to, but there was a pretty long discussion about court processes. In that budget, are you only including criminal process, or are you including civil process?
They're sort of all. So the court processing division are the civil, the VPOs, the eviction notices, judge ordered documents that must be served. Right. All of that's kind of what that division does.
But it's the same thing if it's if it's a notice of a hearing on a FED case that the customer comes in and pays $50 for. You're including that in the expense side on the court process. Is that
the expense side on the court process? The only thing we're showing there are the salaries for those individuals. We're not factoring in the operational costs for serving those papers.
But but the other thing you're not factoring in is that you do get some income on that, $50.
Yeah, there is some on that, yes. And that would offset the M&O expenses quite for the most part. The fuel, the vehicle, the wear and tear on that, mileage, so yeah. So those people drive more than our patrol deputies do in a given day. Just because even though they're zoned in different parts of the county, there's still a lot of back and forth driving on that.
How's that? I don't even know. That's set by statute, isn't it? That $50, and I wonder when the last time that was looked at. Because, I mean, I bet if you look, the demand on you guys has grown as what the private process servers charge based upon the economy needing more money.
I would probably agree with that.
Which means you might be losing a little bit of money when private process servers were charging 60, but if they're charging 100 now, you're losing even more money.
And I've just got 18 or 19 people in that division, and I also think they drive more miles in a day than our patrol division does.
And the civil process would only be a small part of that. The ones that the citizens are dropping off at our office and that box saying, we want the sheriff to serve this and pay their $50 for sheriff service fee, that's only a small portion of that department, or a portion of that department.
Yeah, part of, just to touch too, part of the service fee revenue that's kind of caused the revenues to spike or go up a little bit in the last couple of years is because we have more COPS grants. And that COPS grant for the salary reimbursement goes to that fund. That's where we pay the SROs out of. And so as that goes out, we'll see that number go down, but in the fourth year of those contracts, the schools must reimburse at the full rate for the SROs. So we'll see that one category go down, the other category kind of go up, so we'll offset it.
Just real quick though, when you say full rate, you mean the rate per day that they're at the school?
Yes.
Right,
yes.
Because there is, I think in your slide you had it.
There are portions where those school resource officers are not at the schools in the summertime, holidays, for example, where they're not at the school, so the school's not paying for those days in which they're not there. The sheriff's office utilizes those extra bodies. They just don't get time off in the summer because they're not at the school. So when they're not...
You're having to pay them and the school's not.
Correct, but when they're not at the schools, one of the things that Under Sheriff Taylor just put in place recently is we know where we have our biggest need for extra bodies whenever we can get them. That's in the jail. And at times in the courthouse, depending on what trials may or not be going on. Higher level trials, we have to put a few extra bodies over here for security reasons. The Pulse Call trial was an example of that I can take off the top of my head. But so when those school resource officers are not working for the school in that function, Under Sheriff Taylor's new thing is they will, without a doubt, with the exception of when they're doing a 3-day in-service training in the summertime, review just for them, so they're having to miss school time. And if they have to go to an updated training as a school resource officer, they will be 100% in the jail. And that's not something that has been done before. They kind of were out on the streets doing patrol, or they were helping civil serve papers. But one of the things we discussed is where can we put them to be most effective when we need them now, and that's going to be the jail. And so we'll be paying them. I mean, the sheriff's office is paying, we'll still pay them out their service fee, but the benefit we're going to get is extra bodies in the jail for those weeks that they're not in schools.
What was that? The risk of getting too much into your business, because I'm not the sheriff, I don't know how to run the sheriff's office, but in your general reserve program, they're required to give so many days to the county, right?
I think it's 16 hours on average per month, and that fluctuates on. And we're assessing that right now as far as where those hours, how those are going to be focused, if we're going to focus in certain areas, or a lot of them get their hours during the state fair.
Right.
The state fair, we have a high presence that work in conjunction with Oklahoma City, just because it's such a large event.
Right. I'm just wondering if, you know, I know the elephant in the room, the difficult thing is courthouse security, and I'm just wondering if they could help.
We have put reserves in courthouse security roles and functions. But not all, definitely relay your question back to our sheriff, and
like I said,
I'll try and get you more. I'm not as, I don't know as much about the reserve program as I do a lot of the other areas of our facilities. I'm not very heavily involved in it.
Like when Richard Morissette walked into my office at 5 till 5 yesterday, wanting an answer about process on how something in the clerk's office works, I'm just like, I'm going to get back to you, you know.
But I can get back to that, but yeah, I get 16 hours a month on average of what they have to dedicate, and that's at no cost to us.
Right.
It's volunteer hours.
Right.
Are you saying that the service fee fund is fungible? It can be used for any particular use the sheriff wants to?
Service fee, essentially, with the exception of courthouse security funds.
So it can move from constitutional, statutory, discretionary. You can move it around.
And I can't speak to, because I know the SRO at my daughter's school has been down here in the summer working the entry to the courthouse security.
But that's paid for by the school.
The school pays for when they're here, when they're in the school.
When they
You know,
come down.
we're covering that when they're
It's
here.
a 75-25 deal, isn't it?
Roughly. I mean, yeah, roughly, yes.
Yeah,
We establish a flat rate, and then per school resources, some of them have ranks, some of them don't, but we do it based on the average of all the SROs. To say the SRO, your kid's school gets sick, we slide someone else in there that's in the SRO program where if you want the supervisor is not directly assigned to a school, to make sure that that school is still getting the benefit that they're paying for.
now, in your slideshow, I think you had the gross expense versus the net expense when we get back, and it was like 700,000 or something like that the county's out?
Yeah, it's a little bit less than that possible on.
And is it possible to actually contract with the schools to pay 100% of the expense on that? So you take that, whatever the average salary, the way you've done it, and just divide that by the number of days and allocate that to the school?
We looked at that, we've talked to schools about that, but their response, which is a valid one, is we're not benefiting from them year-round. And that's kind of been the response we've gotten from a few of the schools.
Right, but if we have to have more employees on staff during times when they don't need it, then we're footing the bill because they need something the other 9 months out of the year.
But with how short we are in a lot of our areas, that becomes a huge benefit for us because we're getting those additional bodies. We're not having to pay for a full year. And we get to put them in some areas that are in desperate need. We get a lot more papers when they were working with civil process served in the summertime. We had the SROs assisting in that as well. So there's different ways you can slice it. There's different arguments you can have. You can talk about the pros and cons and different ways of doing it all day long. But I think at the end of the day, the schools are paying for the services that they're receiving. And with the sheriff's office, we're paying for the benefit we have from those positions. And putting extra bodies in the jail when we can is a huge benefit.
I think, and that several people the other day said, you know, we're just trying to look for anything we can do. Steve pointed out that when special revenues go down, we ought to look to other sources besides the general fund to try to make that up. And so I think the resources officer, you know, I know my boss has thrown out charging Oklahoma City more per day for housing prisoners, you know, just and the other entities, and you know, those are hard decisions, and they're hard conversations. You know, I mean, I'm sure the police chiefs around the city don't want to pay more per day for prisoners, but as we lose those special revenue funds, I think we have to be innovative to look someplace else besides general revenue fund.
Right, but we also have to be somewhat, whenever we take those approaches, you also have to be somewhat reasonable, because you have to move kind of on a fine line of
Sure.
If you ask for too much, then you may not get any.
Right.
And so, they're covering their expenses as it sits today, and we're benefiting from them when they're not in the schools, and that to us is huge.
But a lot of the, and I could be wrong on this, but it seems to me like a lot of the time when they're not in the schools in the summertime would probably be when a good majority of them take vacation, because while they're during the school year, they probably can't just, take off.
You do have that for some instances, but you're also seeing a lot because, let's think about it, essentially your paid time off accrual for a given year, on 10 hours, say they work a 10-hour shift, it's going to be roughly 12 days out of the year. We see a lot of our school resource officers, I can't speak for all of them, but the ones that I'm familiar with, and the ones that I've seen leave on or looked at leave on trying to assess that question you asked, we see a lot of them take their vacation on the spring break. We see it more at the Christmas time era. Just because of how the school schedules are kind of broken up. We see a lot of it during those. And so as long as they don't have a huge accrual, that's more so what we're seeing them, I think, in the summertime. And some of these school resource officers have been in other parts of the facility. And so they've got leave built up from those. I mean, some of these people have over 300 hours of leave. And so, yeah, but the same can be said about every other division in our jail or in the sheriff's office. If people are going to take leave when it's beneficial to them.
Right, but what I'm saying though is that the benefit to us is when they're not at the school, then they're here providing other functions. If they're on vacation instead of providing those functions, then that benefit is limited, at least to some extent. And in a perfect world, we could fund and do everything, but I understand where the schools are coming from on that, well, we only have them this many days, but we also have a cost of doing business, and the cost of doing business is we can't just hire, I guess we could, but we don't just hire somebody and say, okay, you're going to work for us for 9 months, and then 3 months you're going to be off. So our cost of doing business to have somebody available for that school is to hire that employee full-time, and our cost of doing business is that employee's expense.
And that has been taken into consideration to some extent as far as what the daily cost per day is.
Because
again, you go to 100%, and you can't get that. You won't get that from these schools. But again, the argument's also, okay, so the school is paying for them. I'm going to play the devil's advocate because it's one of my favorite things to do. The school pays 100%, and then we're utilizing them to benefit us in the summertime. Which was like, well, why am I paying for them to benefit you now?
Yeah.
So,
don't have the SRO. I mean, I just, whenever I look at, we have a bunch of needs, and I think the SRO program and having, whether it's, sheriff deputies or, Oklahoma City Police Department in schools as a parent of 3, 2 that are, going to be graduated in the next year, and 1 that will be starting pre-K after the other graduate. Yeah, I think it's great and everything, but from a number standpoint, I understand that we're providing something and there's a cost of doing business with that. And when we left off the other day, we were looking at putting 70% of core services into general fund budget for you, 100% of detention, 100% of the court processing. You said warranty you could take away. If we had $700,000 roughly more revenue, that pays for all of the courtroom security and half of the courthouse security. That almost covers everything that you're asking for.
But the vast majority of that difference are only about $200,000 or $300,000 are we covering on the school resource officers that are in the schools. There's a couple other positions in that in the community service division that the school resource officers fall under that make up the rest. You got captain and lieutenant who are the supervisors that oversee the 30 or 40 some odd people in there. There's a roving sergeant that helps fill in the schools when they're gone. Just looking at those 2 alone, I mean, you're looking at $260,000 to $300,000.
But that's part of the cost of doing business for that program.
But hold on, let me finish first. This community services is not just for resource officers. There's community involvement, there's interaction with the elderly, there's educational programs that are interactive with the community that they're also heavily involved in that aren't tied back to the schools that division does. And so that, you can't just think the entire community service division is school resource officers and that's it. They're very heavily involved with Triad, which is education of the elderly and public safety, working with them, and that's a program that's been around for many, many years. It's not just us, but I believe now every single law enforcement agency in the county has signed the Oklahoma County Triad, and they work in conjunction with that. So there's more than just the school resource officers that the community service division does. They're heavily involved with community policing and building ties back to the community in different areas where it's needed. So I understand, yes, but there's also the school resource officers, of that 600 or so thousand that isn't covered by the schools for that division as a whole, there's 4 or 5 positions there that aren't tied directly to a school. If that makes sense.
Okay, but you said 30 SROs, right?
I mean,
And then 4, and then a number of 4 that aren't related to that. So the vast majority of the salaries and benefits that are associated with the community outreach, community support are related to the SRO program. So what I'm saying is if you looked at the expense of that program, and that's also the supervisors of that program, even if it weren't the full $700,000, even if it were $400,000, that pays for the 11 FTEs of the courthouse security right there.
Hold on. So roughly 650,000 is not covered by the reimbursement. Around 355 of those are non-SRO positions. No, 350,000 of that are non-SRO positions.
Okay, so that's half. But
But a
you
lot of
said
that
that there's
350 is the supervisors, right?
So
They
you
spend some percentage of their time supervising the SROs.
I guess I just don't understand, because that number is about half of the overall.
Okay.
Hold
on. Community service division is 30 people.
Okay.
The total salaries and benefits of community service is roughly 1.5 to 1.57.
Okay.
And then, we bring back in 925, if I understand my notes correctly, which leaves roughly 650 not covered.
Okay.
So 2/3 is being covered.
Right. But 30 of those, you got 30 folks in there.
30 total,
How many of those are SROs?
all but, I'm doing this off memory because I don't have the breakdown of people in front of me, but all but one. There's 5 that aren't tied to the school directly.
Okay, 5 non.
There's a triad coordinator, there's a secretary that helps with the entire, but is more focused on non-SRO than SRO. There's the captain that oversees the division, and then there's a roving sergeant that helps with the SRO program.
So 3 of those 5 are at least affiliated extremely or to a great extent with the SROs.
I would just say that they are affiliated.
Okay, so of the 30
I'm not getting into
total.
how much time people spend doing
No, I understand. And I'm not trying to micromanage, I'm just trying to figure something out here. So of the 30 employees that we don't get reimbursed and we're spending $650,000 on, of those 30 employees, 5 of them are not in a school, but only 2 of them, well, actually only 1 of them doesn't have anything to do with the SRO. The other one was the secretary that does some of those. So you're saying that of that 650, only 300,000 of the savings would be associated with the folks that are actually in the school, the 25 individuals? it just doesn't make sense how half of that 650 is tied to only 5 people and the other half is tied to 25.
Some of
Well,
it is
it's
the
the time,
and the
summer versus.
supervisors.
No, I understand, and I'm talking,
25 there.
yeah, because I'm talking about the full expense of the program is what I'm talking about. I mean,
You wanna come run it? I mean, you can come run it if you want.
no, it's like, you know, if you're a professional athlete and you play in the NFL,
When you're up for the other day.
hey, if you're playing, well, we'll use the Thunder because they're here, you know, Russell Westbrook has a contract and he's paid a certain amount of money, amount I wish I got, but even though he only plays for part of the year, he still gets paid for that. That's an expense for that organization, and that organization pays for that expense even when he's not on the court providing something to the organization.
So we're comparing our
Teachers.
resource officers to basketball players.
Well, look at
now.
teachers. Teachers are the same way. They're off during the summer. They're not quote-unquote benefiting the school. They're not working in the school during that time that they're off, but they get paid for the year.
But
They may get paid over a 9-month period, you know, or they may stretch it over 12 months, I don't know, but there's a cost for the program. And they don't shift that
But there's a
time.
difference between a school resource officer and a teacher. I mean, you're saying the teacher but the school resource officer, when they're not in the school, they're benefiting our agency.
I understand they are, but if they weren't if we didn't have the SROs at all, then we wouldn't have a majority of those expenses. I mean, we would maybe have a few more folks that we would have in the jail, but we wouldn't have those expenses.
I can get you in communication with our personnel director if you want to talk our personnel structure.
This isn't personnel structure, we're talking about money. We're talking about...
This side of the people and operations and all that, so if that's what you want to get into and talk about, I'm more than happy to put you in contact with the right people.
John, it's not the...
Well, I understand we're talking about numbers, I'm trying not to get defensive or anything like that, but, I mean...
Tell me when the county of Oklahoma County decided they should start competing with private security agencies that would otherwise be hired by school districts to do that. Philosophically, why should we as a county be competing with private business for larger, much more advanced, much more well-funded police departments to do that process? Why?
That's your opinion, your value, you're entitled to your own opinions, Larry.
I know, but I'm talking about the entire budget. I mean, 30 people, that many of them are hired so they can be
And the general fund
working
is not paying
full-time.
for them.
Well, but the general fund is paying for other stuff that could be paying for. That's the only reason why I bring it up, is because we're talking about trying to find sources of revenue so we don't have a potential issue with courthouse security and courtroom security and all of that, because we had $3.2 million left on the table, and, I mean, that's not gonna be enough to go around, and if there's another revenue stream out there that we can tap into to offset expenses, my question is just, are we looking at that? I mean, because that is a potential way to offset some of these expenses.
The SROs?
Like, he wants to charge the schools more for the SRO program.
Did I say I want to? I said, have we looked at?
That's what you're leaning at. That's kind of the impression I'm getting.
Well, and if we want to, because you've made a couple of comments about talk to this person or that person over there, so if we want to back off and look at just the big picture, okay? Last year, in the meeting, you talked several times about the budget was built, and it was so much money without any input. Then at the meeting, when we adopted the budget, we put an additional $500,000-$600,000 on top of that budget. It was a quarter. It was 3 months worth of funding for something that you were asking
DOC
for
loss of revenue.
last year. And you were able to make it through the entire year on what the budget board gave you, plus that $600,000. Now,
That's this fiscal year.
now that $600,000 has become part of your baseline funding, and we've put an additional, was it $580,000 now, $500,000 on top of that. And, I mean, I get why you separate out courthouse and courtroom security, because it's a hot button issue. I mean, I get why you would separate that out and say, this is the thing that we're gonna have to cut, just like the Park Service closed down the monuments in Washington when they got their funding cut. I mean, I get that, but big picture wise, I'm having a hard time seeing how when the budget has grown at least 1.1 million over what the budget board initially approved last year, how it is now that we're saying, I think the whole thing is the resource allocation choice.
Let's look at it this way. Let's just nix the SRO program and let's say that's not even there. Let's just say that's not there. You're saving the $600,000. But that's a dollar amount. Then really it's not, because we're paying, so $300,000 we're essentially paying for them working in areas we absolutely need them to work in. So
So they're performing services you're not performing the other 9 months of the year?
They're working in the jail, they're working in the courthouse, and in the store, but that's where they were at when they were in the school. So we're getting that benefit there. So then, by them going away, those employees are no longer in the agency, you're not getting that amount of work. So really, you're not paying for it.
Well, then we're getting the same amount of work.
$100,000.
So then we're getting the same amount
And
of
it
work
still doesn't cover what you're trying to cover.
during those 3 months that we get the other 9 months. Because the other 9 months, they're elsewhere. So we would have the same service that we have August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, during May, June, July.
I mean, that's a management decision.
Well, sure, it's about, the whole thing is a resource allocation choice, and that's why, as I watched the meeting, and with good cause, the presiding judge and all the judges want to be protected. Renee is gonna stand up and fight for her people. But this is not an argument over whether this body is funding courthouse security and courtroom security. This is a resource allocation choice that the sheriff's department makes, and I'll be doggone if I'm gonna get blamed for a resource allocation choice that you guys make.
So so essentially trying to manage our operation with money. I mean, that's what's happening.
Every operation
Well,
is
that's
managed with
you
money.
can say. And I'm not trying to pick on you, John.
You're doing a good job.
Well, I guess I'm so good that I do it when I'm not intending to do it. But the point is, and my idea of a major aspect of our job, not just during budget time, but every time of the year, is to try to find solutions to problems. And it's not just general fund reserve. It's not. I mean, we hear PDA bantered about, we hear other stuff bantered about. We're trying to find potential other solutions to problems. That's what we're throwing out. Have we looked at that? Have we approached the schools about them footing the bill for the expense of that program? The expense of that program is not just while they're there. That's what benefit they receive, but it puts a liability off onto us. When we have declining revenue streams in your special revenue, that's a potential opportunity to offset. I mean, you're talking about losing $600,000 and some odd thousand to the city of Oklahoma City for boarding fees this next year. That $600,000 would replace that loss, potentially.
I think the point's been made.
Yeah, I mean, we're just beating a dead horse at this point. I get it. I get where your stance is. I get where you're coming from.
And those school resource officer contracts come across the board, can't they?
Sure.
And it's been a 2-1 vote for the last, many other years.
Yeah, and on some of those that are on the grants, it's a lock. I mean, they have to be completed up to the 4th year. And that was part of the initial contract.
That's the federal money.
Is that program growing, John? Is it leveled out as far as the schools we service, or
We've leveled it out. We've had a lot of schools ask for additional,
Right.
and we've said no.
Okay. So we're kind of leveled out. We're not thinking about increasing
My understanding of the program as it sits today is I think we've plateaued.
Yeah.
I don't think we need, and I'm gonna speak John's opinion right now, I think that we can't afford to make it any bigger. I would anticipate it would get smaller as some of these grant programs run out here in the next year and a half. I think some of them are due to end this year, where they're in their 4th year of the grant, or will be, and then whether or not they choose to renew it afterwards will be up to those school boards. I do know that there was talk that Oklahoma City Public Schools were wanting to drop OCPD because of how expensive they were and move and try to negotiate with us.
Right.
And that will absolutely not happen. We will not do that. We don't plan on it. And I'm sure Taylor made that very clear to us, that that is the message we will send to them. We're not looking to grow that program. That program is, if anything, will decrease as some of these grants run up. And then those positions, if depending on what our staffing levels are in certain areas, with our attrition levels in the jail, and some of our other positions like the courthouse or court processing, if those positions then are no longer funded by the schools, we'll absorb those bodies back into like profile, right, like rank positions back into the detention centers just because of the attrition levels. And so rather than hiring a couple new people for the jail, we'll absorb those to fill in some of those spaces that we're budgeted for already. But again, I don't see it coming down to dwindle until we get through the 4th year of these COPS grant projects. Because the schools that have them that are on the COPS grants are the ones that are the bigger schools, the Deer Creeks, who will have the funding to continue that. And Cody, back to your initial about asking the schools for more and covering more of the percentage. I'm not against it. We've approached it before, and it didn't go anywhere. We had created essentially a baseline that did covered while they're at the school, but also covered their mandatory training and so forth they had to do, where they were doing things, where it was the NASRO training, which is a National School Resource Officer Training Program, or going through mini academies, which were tailored towards school resource officers, dealt with more active shooter type situations and things of that nature, that those costs were factored in to that rate. When the program first started, the only things that were really included there were the salaries. What was left out that we've made sure that we've included moving forward has included more of the, yes, it covers the salaries and benefits, it also takes into consideration mileage on the vehicle and fuel consumption, things of that nature. And so, yeah, we're inching slowly towards trying to capture more of a true 100%. I don't think that we'll ever be able to get to the true 100%, but the fact is, yes, we are looking, we have looked, I've got no issue looking again, and having the conversation with some of these superintendents to see kind of test the waters and see where they stand on things. I mean, and then at that point, we can come back and see, okay, well, and we've got new management at the sheriff's office, and so it's something that you know, it can be a conversation topic. I can't tell you, we haven't really had that conversation yet. I can't tell you where that may or may not go. But it's something that can be approached. And I've got no issue being with our community service division and being at some of those meetings when we talk to the schools about what to expect in the upcoming year or years, to see what we can do there. I understand your concern, I really do.
Well, and just to be clear, and I think I stated this in the very beginning, I think having officers in schools is extremely important in this climate. This has nothing to do with that. And on top of that, my boss has voted yes, to my knowledge, every single time
Yes.
we've had an SRO, a COPS grant project or whatever come across. My point is that we need to look long and hard at expenses, and it's easy for a school or the state of Oklahoma, kind of like we were talking about with juvenile, it's really easy for them to say no when they know that we'll say, okay, we'll pick up the tab. It's really easy to say no because they know they don't have to negotiate because they're going to get what they want in the end. So that's kind of, I'm just saying that that's something that I see as a potential offset in some of our revenue declines. Is that at the end of the day going to be a viable solution and something that we absolutely have to do? Maybe not. I don't know, but I think it's definitely something worthwhile to look at.
Well, and I mean, I think, just not looking at it in any personal standpoint, but your special revenue is reducing, right?
Yeah, one's going down about 14% over the last 5, one's 27%.
If that trend continues, that's going to dictate that you're going to have to reduce expenses because you can't obviously continue, you know what I'm saying? With
I
limited resources.
don't disagree with you, and we're working.
Right, and
we're looking at all of it.
Yeah, I'm not
we really
John,
are.
I'm just talking about in the business model, if your revenue's reducing, you're going to
And we
have
are.
to reduce expenses.
And we've been doing that over the years. I mean, our staffing levels have, as you all know, come down quite a bit. Sometimes faster than sometimes faster than they need to, but they're coming down and they're slowing a little bit. I mean, we're looking at everything. A perfect example today is, some have asked about this Homeland Security position that we have as one person, that does a lot of the FEMA stuff, when there's a natural disaster as well. As of May 21st, that position's gone. That was a letter that was signed and put out today. And that person is going to be moving to our facility maintenance division that needs the extra bodies, needs the help, and it's a person who's going to be a huge asset for that. And so we've eliminated that position from our things, and that was I believe that was a special revenue where I had it calculated. So I mean that just for that about $68,000 for that person's, but it's filling a needed void in the facility maintenance division. So things of that nature. We have an individual that's a captain that's plans on retiring here in less than a month, and we're not going to fill that position. We're going to leave that. And we're just going to end up. I don't think we're going to freeze it and not fill it. I think we're going to actually eliminate it, and that will help a little bit. So essentially, we'll be able to slide the Homeland Security person that was there, who's making less than the captain, into that slot and still be able to save some money. So we're looking at all these things on a daily basis, and as we're learning and as we're and as especially as Pete is getting the information he needs to make educated, smart, and wise decisions with the management of the office, he's doing that. It's with anything that's big, especially when you've got over 600 employees and you've got so many moving parts that we do, we're definitely moving in the right direction, both financially, I think even from a management standpoint. It just takes a little bit of time. We don't want to rush into things without really fully thinking through it, because I think that's bad management. But we really are. We're looking at all these things, and I've got no issue, Cody, going back and really having some tougher decisions with some of these schools on here's where we're sitting financially, here's where we're going. And I think there's other areas as well, without going into a lot of detail, that I think we're committed to having some conversations on for some services that are provided. So some of these smaller agencies that help start covering some of the costs there. Just like, dispatch services, for example. I think there's a certain level of service that needs to be covered. So those are all things, as we move forward over the next year and as management decisions are made, I think will be looked at. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, please be patient as we try and address a lot of the past as we move forward and make positive changes on, I believe in being made every day. Some are small, some are big, but the scope of the changes don't really get noticed when they're being made steps at a time. It's those big shock and awe type things that you all are really seeing. But I think we're definitely moving in that direction. So please just be patient with us as we do that. I do think that we've definitely got a different management style, and so that's beneficial to us. And so, like I said, I try to be as transparent with you all as I can. I apologize for earlier this week. I took a little bit of a defensive and hostile tone, and that was not my intention. I let the past kind of steer me in a way that I know you guys are really being open-minded to what's being done differently, and I appreciate that. So as we move forward, Cody, and the rest of you guys, we're going to be transparent. We're really going to try and make decisions that are not only in the best interest of the sheriff's office and the citizens, but also take into consideration management decisions that impact us and the county financially too. And so just be patient as we do move forward. I understand a lot of you have concerns and opinions on different aspects of our operation, and everyone's entitled to that. I fully understand, and if I take it personally, I don't mean to. But I'm an open book. You all know that. You all ask me some questions. I'm going to do what I can to answer them. And
I'm not laughing at you, John. Evidently, Dan just paid the electric bill and he's out.
okay.
That's good service.
I thought it was his screensaver or something.
Right.
So, I mean, as we look, just know we're definitely going to be making changes. We're going to continue to make some. I think that the outcome in September, once that's here and passed, I think even more will be made by whoever's elected sheriff. And so, please just be patient. I know we're kind of in a very awkward position as being a budget board county right now and not really having that elected official. But I do appreciate you all asking me the questions and giving me the time to look for the answers if I don't have them readily available, and I'm off my soapbox.
So we can ask more questions?
No.
Oh.
Can we ask you about courthouse security?
Let me ask you.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay.
As you were, what button did you put? What can you say?
Hey.
Having a lot of fun here.
Are they monitoring it? How many calls on it?
Danny gave it.
Yeah, did,
Sign.
well, like this one.
That's a good idea. We should ask you something.
Chris, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you for the revenue stuff, so that helps. I know we've talked about the or the discretionary funds and special.
The drug funds and donations.
Tell me again what the drug stuff, that's anything associated with pursuing drugs,
Yeah,
right?
Some of it's the federal asset forfeiture and the drug seizures, some of the cash seizures, things of that nature. And those have to follow the federal equitable sharing guidelines. And one of the key things in there is it can't be used for supplementation. So they can't be used to replace funding that they said, well, since you have that, we're going to reduce your budget. So that's one of the things that's kind of that limits it. And there's certain categories that the funds can and can't be used for. It's very restricted as far as salaries go, things of that nature.
Really direct then.
So if you can be more specific, that'd be helpful.
You're showing $481,000
In drug fund.
Drug fund for state. But on red, we've got some committed folks, 7 full-time.
And we can't use their salaries for that.
And why is that?
One of the restrictions in the federal, looking at the federal
In
equitable sharing guidelines, the way that that's structured, when we looked at it, was it couldn't be used to fund those people.
Is seven the full amount of commit people, or are there some commit people that you're gonna pay out of here?
No, seven is the commit division.
So what salaries do you pay out of here?
We don't pay any salaries out of drug funds.
But salaries could be, you said.
My understanding is they can't be.
Oh.
So where do they get paid from?
Special revenue.
There's 481,000.
Yeah, that was our percentage of the total that was adjudicated through the court system. I
thought commit picked up those drugs and that money can go back into the commit program.
The way that program works is there's 3 different agencies on that, and I can, without looking at the exact contract and MOU and so forth. It's a task force that's made up of 3 different agencies: Oklahoma City, us, and the DA's office. It stands for the Central Oklahoma Metro Interdiction Task Force, which their priority is really the drug trade and drug trafficking. And part of that is we did, when was it? I think earlier this week, we seized 52 pounds of marijuana. And that's just straight drugs. And so whenever cash gets seized, when it's tied directly to the criminal activity that's there, and it's proven in the court of law, then it gets adjudicated. It goes into a pot. Commit.
The pot goes into
The pot goes into a pot, no, but it goes into a account. Commit's overall overhead is not our exposure, but the commit itself. Those funds are paid for. Their operating expenses are paid for. And then the amount that we receive comes back to our agency based on a percentage of how many people we have tied to that program. I think our percentage is around 35 to 36% of the overall. And then that's what that goes into. And so last year we received 1 check for a little over $490,000. And that some years we get 1 check, 2 checks, some years we get no checks. I think 1 year, I'm not sure if it's on that, I think it was less than $100,000 1 year. So
if it can't be used for salaries, am I to take it that it's basically vehicles?
it's used for capital, it's used a lot for capital, it's used,
But it can't go back
vehicles
to
historically.
the commit people. I mean, you're saying
That's
it's
all,
not used for
that's my
salaries.
understanding, I'll go back and look at it for you again.
I would just think, I
But-
guess I thought it could be, I knew it was restricted, I guess I thought that it could go back to the actual people that are on, our share of those people that are out there sitting in truckers.
I will go back and look at it, a lot of it goes into the supplanting of funds and so forth, so we'll have to go back and look at all of that. I've got no issue going back and diving back into that again. But historically, that, yes, to answer your units and vehicles, if vehicles are bought, it's bought through those funds and not something that's going to affect our daily operational budgets. We just lost our training building roof to high winds. And that building was built, it was used back in the 1980s when it was placed out there to the point where it's not worth repairing. One of the allowable uses is that capital item, since it's used for training purposes, and we're gonna use some of those funds to pay for that building as opposed to asking the county to pay for a building. So it's used for things along those lines.
You saying new building?
We're going to replace that building, yes.
The one in Spencer?
The one out at the training center, yes.
Do you have any vehicles then in any of these three, general,
No,
special revenue?
we don't pay for any new vehicles out of there. Take that back. At times historically, money was donated specifically for a car, and that funding fell under,
So restricted.
all of those funds are under 1161, so they all technically fall under special revenue in the cost code, but they're different cost centers. But as far as the daily operating expenditures or revenues that are in those funds, no, vehicles aren't bought from there.
Did you get, insurance for it?
The deductible is $250,000, and there was no insurance on that building, because of the low value to begin with. But I did check with Dan Matthews, he said that was a major Waldenville decision a long, long time ago, in the faraway galaxy.
And we don't get any money from the state for the courtroom system, right? We function.
The only funding we get for that directly is those courthouse security fees, and that's the $10 on the criminal and civil filings.
Yeah, but we don't get anything from state, not the fee, but anything
That is
from
correct.
state for us to provide people in our courtrooms, which is a state function.
That is my understanding.
If that's a state function, are we allowed to use general ad valorem dollars to fund that?
But it's a state function, it's a service.
The state court does.
It's the third branch of government providing judges to the county for their citizens.
But
Oklahoma
state,
County District Court.
but we don't pay the judges or the
Right.
DAs, they're state employees.
Right.
No, you don't pay their salaries, you're right, they are provided to the county at no cost.
Well, they're not provided to the county as a state function, so.
Ultimately, like I said before a meeting the other day, ultimately, if somebody wants to saddle up and go across the alley and get that debate figured out, there are real strong feelings on both sides of that, and none of those feelings are gonna help us get to a place.
I'm not saying I disagree with that either, but.
I'm just trying to stay focused on what we can address.
But that being said, I mean, I think, you know, Christie asked a valid question about, you know, whether we were receiving any funds because of the nature of what they do.
John, can I ask you a couple questions on your actual numbers, people?
Sure. Page
108. We've got courthouse security, we've got a total of 17. So 17 people man, you know, the entrance to the annex, the entrance to the courthouse, and the guard shack, right?
Yeah.
How are those 17 kind of figured out as far as, I mean, do we try to keep two here, and one in the guard shack, or?
That I can't speak to. I'm not sure if Captain McDonald's in the building today, but he'd be the one that can answer that.
How specific?
And I'm not really, and additionally to go to his comment,
Yeah,
I'm not sure how much detail I can go into that,
Right.
if I knew.
yeah.
Right.
And the courtroom.
Yeah, I know, but I just can't relay that at the moment.
And we, you know, there are guys moving throughout the building. We see them on our floor, every day, coming through, and we really appreciate it.
There's always a room in it.
And I don't know if the one in your office, if your office pays for that, or if that,
It
yeah.
takes one.
Which has been a huge benefit just from the tax warrants,
Right.
that, I mean, I think it's almost getting close to $1 million in the last
He's brought in
year.
more than $1 million since we've had him, like, serving
And having a dedicated person serving tax warrant like that, where that's their sole function, has been huge.
Yeah, he accompanies the bank run every day, and it's been nice having a guard in there all the time. I mean, he's right where you walk in the door and his desk is there. But yeah, we, resell resources.
We have some number of incidents on floor every month, you know, sometimes it's a couple, sometimes it's 6 or 8, but they're, you know.
And back to,
That's part of it, sometimes over at the VPO counter, but it can have to do with the divorce counter, and it can have to do, with the cost counter, certainly, guys coming out of prison, and they may not have remembered when during that time that they've been there, that they owe $15,000 in court costs, and they don't know exactly what they're gonna do now to be able to pay that. I mean,
well, and I wanna, on Monday, I think, was it Monday, was it Tuesday, Monday, this week, I don't know where, yes, it was Tuesday. We're not looking to get rid of our courthouse security, and it's a very important function of our office. That's not our intent, it's not what we're trying to say, it's an ultimatum. We believe it's an important county function, that serves a purpose to everybody, so, that was one of the reasons we did place it in as a general fund request. Not to say if it's not funded, it won't be done, it's just gonna make it difficult for us to figure out what decisions we need to make.
Let me ask.
And the level of service, we don't know what that may or may not be.
Let me ask you, I'm looking at 194, it's just the sheet of your revenues for special service week.
Okay.
I know the sheet was created, so there were several months of estimates. If you look at actuals now through 11 months, and of course I'm doing June through.
We do June through May, so we look at it.
Yeah, well, this
June through
June through
right.
April, I took actuals. If you're looking at actuals, the amount is 340, and this is just straight off the claims receipt report. $344,934.57 more. Take 90% of that, you're at 309 more than what you have.
Thank you.
And that's only 11 months worth?
No, that's over 11 months. I may have done the 11 months divided by 11 and added one
Okay,
more.
okay.
Yeah, and there's a
I
couple.
estimated 1 month, but it's essentially, when we did these sheets, we're doing them way back. You probably only had numbers through February.
Well, there's numbers through February, but on service fee too, one of the things we run into, and which is, we have to look at it differently, is we know that there's a certain line on the, like on the revenue sheet I gave you, I think you had under as COPS SRO reimbursements. I'm not sure if it's on, that it may be on the one I emailed you, but, that's typically a quarterly, so we expect 4, and so, not knowing when those are gonna come in, sometimes we've got them quickly, depending on when our grants person got those submitted, so we have to kind of look and estimate when those are gonna come in and not too. So there's some things that may end up being next fiscal year, or that we're expecting next fiscal year and come in early, but no, and we're also running off of earlier numbers as well, so the farther you get into a fiscal year, the closer and more accurate you're gonna get as far as revenues goes. We know that with everything.
We do, and I was just looking at, we're trying to figure out your request for security courthouse and such is a total of 1.2.
I mean,
So I'm just trying to find.
And let's be realistic too, is when we look at operations, and we look at everyone's special operations, special revenue funds, yes, we budgeted 90%. We hope that it's not actually 90%, that's definitely a buffer for us, but as we get farther into fiscal years, or farther into a fiscal year, we get 6 months in, we get a pretty good idea of what's trending there. I can tell you my financial thought process for the sheriff's office moving forward is to really try and budget off that 90%. Because I think it's important for us to live in a manner that is financially smart. Historically, it was live paycheck to paycheck, and what was there was there. If it exceeded the 90%, then it exceeded 90%. And so those are things that we're trying to work on, and that
Which I totally agree with, and
takes.
had it been anyone else at this table with, large increase requests, I probably would pull their special revenue, run the revenue too. It's the same thing.
So we're looking at that, and like I said, we're trying to get back to where we're financially stable, and we're to a point where our expenses aren't exceeding our revenues, and our cash balances are quickly depleting, and carryover amounts are coming down, and Danny can attest, the last, since before I got here, it was really bad. I think over the last 5 years, we've gotten closer and closer to getting back to financial stability where our expenditures and revenues are pretty much on par with each other. I feel like that's a safe comment to make. And I think this year we're in a pretty good spot. And we're trying to figure out, what do you do with some of these big hits that were kind of unexpected to some extent. We're getting there, we're working really hard, and as I promised you, we're doing everything we can over there. I'm looking at everything every which way I can, and I'm always gonna listen to thoughts you guys have and see if it's feasible or not.
The only other thing I had is, we keep talking about that fee bringing in, this is the security fee bringing in about $425, $450-ish.
Yeah, that was the number I had in the back of my mind, and I need to go back and pull those specifically. I can look. I saved them for this year.
The actual of that, just that fee alone, 11 months, this is just 11 months. So not even factoring in a 1 month estimate, $419,106.84. It's averaging about $38,000 a month, which if you get the last month, when the last month comes in, it'd be $457,207.46.
It was about that 450 that was, so I'm
That
showing.
would easily cover more than the 6 people.
So I'm
and
showing.
I think you said some M&O in there.
Yeah, there's M&O capital in there as well.
But we can we can pick up another couple bodies, at least one. And when I use 425, you could pick up another whole person with benefits, and that still leaves you like 30,000. And that's using 425, when I see actuals that are 419 and estimate a month of 457, so.
And one of the things we ran into this year was the, June revenues for this year, or June of 16 were appropriated last fiscal year. This year they weren't.
And I take that
Yeah.
in, I know that,
Yeah.
I always
And
go June through
yeah.
May.
So June, I'm looking at all of our, I got the spreadsheet in front of me, I'm showing an average. June, I'm only showing 140, I need to find out if that was a typo or not. Because I need to ask Melissa how she put that in there. So far this year that we've appropriated this year, in this fiscal year funds, I'm showing 379, 134, which is an average of 34, 466.
I probably picked up the actual that you don't have appropriated that's about to happen next week, too.
This is the 46, 531, that, I've got that in here, that will, oh, no. Yeah, this is what we brought in April that we're appropriating next week, that's in here.
You got it.
Yeah. So
These
looking
are
at,
my actuals. Moving on. And I can show you the reports.
Yeah.
So those are the actual, like, miscellaneous receipt reports, the one that
yeah.
these get.
No,
But I still think, I mean, it's trending up, and
we're pretty,
I think we can,
we're pretty close as far as.
I'm a bit confused. On 1160, there's a courthouse security. Has that been removed from the previous sheet? 6 FTEs, $243,000.
say that again. What page down there?
On page 1, bill 199, there's a courthouse security. It says 6 FTEs, $243,000.
Yeah, that's the six that he talked about all along, about being in the special revenue budget.
Uh-huh.
That's the one that the fee is covering.
Okay, but you're saying
But
that
I'm-
you real.
I'm saying the fee can cover more than that.
I'm showing a totally different number in March, but everything else is like $100 and some odd dollars. And then April,
I may have wrote it down fast.
Yeah.
I was doing this quick.
yeah, see June, because we appropriated that in the prior,
Right.
we didn't factor that into this. You take those numbers and, I mean, which is why I went back to that kind of 425 to 450. I mean, we're fairly there. And on the capital too, whenever we look at those, there's nothing I can read. I mean, there's nodes that come in kind of on the capital side as far as equipment.
What is their capital and then those type stuff?
A lot of it's the machines for the entrances and so forth, and the service agreements to maintain the X-ray machines and all of that. I have to go back and break down, those just to come out of that fund. So I don't want to throw out a number of what the total is.
Give us that capital number and I'll ask PBA for that money, and then.
I know a couple years ago, we had to replace an entire X-ray machine and replace a couple of magnetometers that people walk through. And those are 15 to 20 grand just for the magnetometers. And then we also, we try not to, you know, I'll just be upfront, I try not to budget all of that, in salaries, because salaries, you know, those are gonna be there. But with, and camera replacements and so forth, we cover that. We have to leave a little bit because we have the unexpected, the gates are breaking, and those are usually a fairly expensive fix, and so I always try to leave myself a buffer there for the unknowns over here as part of that, the deal with the courthouse security.
That's all I had.
Yeah, and right now we have some equipment that's out, without going into details, it's gonna need to be replaced. And it's gonna come with a little bit of a price tag, and so that's also kind of being considered in there as well.
What is?
We have some equipment that needs to be replaced.
With the entrances? Or?
Without going into
Without
detail.
going into detail.
Oh, gotcha. to do things, I understand.
Trying to keep you guys protected.
Well, I'm not sure where we go. I know we're sitting here on this courthouse security issue at 1.2.
Well, one of the things we looked at whenever we were talking last week, I told you guys, I kind of built this document, kind of a fresh estimate of needs, so to speak, with just the positions you all were comfortable with, the 70% of core detention and core processing, and then what the M&O and capital was. I broke all that out. I'd like to show you what that is, if I can maybe plug it into the big screen and try to turn the power off. Just to show that to you really fast, I think that would help, and maybe give us something we can maybe find some consensus on without talking on the courthouse security side of things yet. Or Danny would feel comfortable emailing this to you if you would prefer that. I'm just gonna send you the Excel document since I trust you. Guess I can send you the PDF. Let me see here.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Is that a dodgeball?
Oh, yeah. I ain't bring my wrench to throw at you.
Yeah. You can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
It should be coming to you now. It's gonna be a lot faster when I'm operating on, so maybe on my side.
I'm just looking at you guys' computer, because you use like
One's supposed to handle-
thinner than my fingers.
handle rotate.
My thigh.
Scoot and I decided to do opposites. My computer is more depictive of his body shape.
But I feel comfortable working out in the rain on this.
Do you do that often?
I've had to.
Really?
It gets cold.
And then on phone.
All right, here we go. Does that look like your document?
Danny, what'd you change on? That's not it. No, I'm just kidding.
Look away for a second.
No, that's, mainly, if you go to so looking at the salary computation page, I've taken the 70% of core services and left it there. Detention is what we requested it at. The court processing, Dan, if you'll roll down for me. The detention part-time, just a pretty clarification, detention part-time is the front entrance, part-time security on the front doors and the back door, as well as hospital guard duty, when we have to bring reserves in from the outside, to fill on the inmates, so we're not taking staff away from the jail. I cleared out the additional requests we had, just so it could be depicted that way, and if you keep going down, I applied it's 5 or 9.5, I guess if we want to saw someone in half, we can put half in healthcare. Came to that, and so if you look at the budget worksheet, everything's there, plus the $600,000 overtime in the jail. Everything there is formula driven. And when you come down to the very bottom, looking at all the M&O expenses, and these are based on, with the exception of the medical and the food and so forth, kind of based on historical trends and where it's looking like it's going to end up. That's the M&O. There's the capital, and that's the overall. So with just those, I'm showing 803,377, which is, I think, is 240 or 250 more than the 560 that was there before. And I also want you to know that we have the commissary revenue that fits in the 1161, and we have factored in most of the capital and the leases and so forth that are in there and are paying for it out of that account. Under 1161, our estimated needs, the M&O and capital, that's all reflective of commissary. That has nothing to do with the salaries that are being paid and salaries and benefits. All the M&O for the field service operations are all reflected in the service fee fund. It's made it easier to isolate those out and do it that way.
Getting back to the bottom line.
And then that's the copier lease for the detention center. We have some copiers that would fall into the core services category, but I'm fine with covering those out of our service fee, because trying to take 70% of those copier leases would be a nightmare. So that's just the detention center copier lease. And that's for more than one copier. And that also includes the scanners that we have on lease for records in the detention center. Yes. So based on the numbers, data here is what we're showing. With the personnel you guys have been okay with. So that's that kind of is what you all consider with the approach of funding the detention center and stuff with that of the general fund. And knowing we're paying about, I'm not counting commissary resale supplies, probably 600,000 or so of other odds and ends out of the commissary fund.
I'm just trying to see what, because when we left, we had an increase of the 585, so I'm just trying to see how
That
much
didn't include the
M&O.
increase in the M&O.
And that's why I wanted to pull this up, because I thought this would be an easier way of showing that,
Yeah.
and trying to go at plus and minuses here, there, everywhere.
Right.
And put question marks on things.
So the 585 didn't even have the contract, the inmate medical?
That was,
Inmate
Okay, so it had the ones we
include-
had already agreed
Yes,
on.
medical and other stuff it didn't have.
Gotcha.
And then it was 70% of only salaries and benefits.
For core.
Right.
Right.
But that 565 doesn't add up based on
What do you mean 565?
what we had earlier on the other worksheet.
585, 40?
Right, because the benefits were off.
The benefits, they had the number.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to show this, because there was some, in the benefits area, the math was wrong on what you guys were showing.
That's
so
why
if
I
we
asked
would've-
him yesterday to do this.
So if we would've, and I already had this bill, I mean, this is what I've been working on with us talking, because Dan, if you go down to the difference on M&O, I mean, it was $1 million, and what you guys were showing was 580.
Yeah.
So that's where the differences are. You subtract out 390 or so, and you add back in that gets you to the 8, give us plus or minus. I would just ask you all to consider that 8 as the kind of baseline, and we can always come back and discuss courthouse to some extent, but I would ask maybe, at this point, we consider that 8 under the adjustment category, and then I'm fine with moving on and coming back towards the end if we want to discuss courthouse a little bit further. And I would, if when we do discuss it further, I would lean on, if any consideration is given, that the consideration be given to the courtroom request that we had on there first, before we put the courthouse security request on the table for discussion, because that courtroom are those deputies that really are dealing predominantly with those inmates, moving them to and from, the security of them up on the 11th floor, moving them to and from the courtroom, sitting on them in the courtroom. So I would ask that be, if the priority was given, that be done first, since it's tied a lot more closely to the inmates in the detention center than the courthouse security folks are, if that makes sense.
this amount, Danny, can you scroll down to the total? 35 million and change. 35,071,149.12, an $803,377.12 increase over last year.
And
But that would-
that's.
Right. Oh, that includes fully funding detention, both salaries, benefits, and M&O expenses in the general fund. It includes 70% of the core services paid out of general fund and 100% of court processing being paid for out of general fund. That 803, like Scooter mentioned, that includes some M&O, it includes all the M&O to include the increase in medical, cap, and food. Is that sufficiently explained? And what you're wanting right now is to see if we can get consensus to go ahead and move that over, and then
We do the adjustments, then I'm fine with coming back, once we go through everyone else's and look at the, courtroom section first, and then second being the courthouse.
Okay.
So it's about $218,000 different than what we have in there.
Yeah.
Mike?
Should have said somewhere else.
Amy?
All your facial
Okay,
expressions.
I'll go this way, Scooter. I usually always go that way, but.
Yes.
Rick?
Oh, we're going this way?
Mike didn't want to go first.
I mean, I guess I could go here. All right, count off. 1, 2, 1, 2.
I'm gonna put names in the hat, we're just gonna draw.
You want to think for a minute?
Okay, no.
All right, Larry?
Pass.
Danny?
No.
Yes.
Steve? Christie? Mike?
Can I have a condition? Yes. I mean, here's the thing I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around, is the yearly incremental piece of the county pie, less for 7 agencies, more for one, and that's just my own hang-up. And I know that can all kind of be adjusted out in September, but there's gonna be a whole myriad of issues to deal with on their merits in September. And so, you know, I get it, we're moving those, we're saying we're gonna find all the M&O, or all of the jail expenses out of general fund. What I've got a hard time still getting my head around is, we recommended a level last year with 2.2 million on the watch list that was recommended before that. They gave you the level that we recommended last year, plus 600,000. Now, we've already increased that another 570,000. Now we're talking about taking that 570 up to 840, it's another $250,000. I mean, that's just in the overall 6,000-foot view. That's where my heartburn is. And so with the, doesn't matter, I mean, we don't have consensus, but, so, saying this is kind of a chicken scratch move at this point, so we don't have consensus, I'm just trying to say no.
I guess I don't have to say, right? No, I'm a yes. I think that by getting all of the detention center folks, with budget board made clear last year that they wanted the jail paid for out of general fund. I think court processing councils told us that is a constitutional obligation, and this would fund that, and we know that it's funded and going to be paid for, regardless of income levels coming in on special revenues, and it also supports part of the core services that are associated with the detention facility. So, but it's all the chicken scratch, is what you said.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say the other word.
Mike,
My mom might be right.
remind me, I think you said it a couple times today, how they got funding, and I remember they wanted the full amount, but we only gave them
He's talking
a
about
quarter.
the DOC.
Right, but when did we give them more this year?
Well, no, our budget recommendation already is $570,000 for that.
Which is directly tied to.
Because I thought we had your
And-
budget, and then we
and
just gave you,
So,
The 570 some odd thousand was tied directly to inmate medical and food.
This year.
Yeah,
And last year it was too, and was it spent on that last year?
Yeah.
And was it a one-time expenditure or, an increase, an annual increase in your budget?
Well, the 500 we got last year, you're referring to?
It was six, wasn't it?
Well, that was tied back to the Department of Corrections contract loss. Initially, BET had recommended that it be at the full, and do the seed corn, I think was the phrase, we got a quarter of it. At this last,
And then went through the rest of the year without any more of it, right?
Right, and we made it work, and I'm hoping, I can't make 110% guarantee, but I'm hoping I don't have to come back on medical this year. I'm gonna try and find ways to absorb that the best I can.
I'm more of a maybe than a no, but I'm not too yes yet.
I was trying to get you to the yes.
I know.
But you're,
But we're, I mean, we're trying to do everything right. We really, really are.
you're also asking for $250,000 more in the cap, right? In the
Yeah,
cap.
and that's, last year was almost $800,000 over the 1.5 that was estimated this year. I still haven't gotten the report for up through April yet, but going up through March, had down to about 250, and it's been slowly trickling down as we get closer into the year. So I'm hoping, not knowing some of the claims that are currently out there, I'm hoping it comes in under 250. I really am.
Well, that's where the rub is for me, is that's kind of an arbitrary number, and I think that could be addressed.
But we have to, well,
That's my rub.
unfortunately, with the cap, the DA's office will agree to some extent, is we have to do a very good job of estimating what we're gonna get billed, and Armor, well, I was going through reports and looking back at historically and different things, and we believe that the 1.75 is a good estimation of what the off-site cap and pharmacy will be for next fiscal year, based on a variety of factors, including the population coming down, last year's and this year's, and kind of some of the past months. I'm hoping that this year was a reflection of what it will be moving forward with the lower population. You have a lower risk pool because you have less people, but that doesn't mean that your estimate's you're going to be higher or low. If you have one catastrophic claim, and with the jail not having inmate health care, kind of a shock loss type policy, which I think there may be some options out there that exist that I'm going to actively pursue in the next couple of months. But again, it's the 1.75 we believe is an accurate, and I think, I'm hopefully, I think there's going to be a little bit of just because how things always play out. It used to be in the past that we would zero everything out. I think this year there may be a little bit of lapse that comes from us just because on how the last month inmate medical plays out. So
That's a rolling number, just like employee benefits.
Right.
And
But
that's the rub for me.
But the difference is we have to encounter that up front, employee benefits doesn't.
But to that point, and I could be wrong on this, but that's not like an insurance policy like our, we've got our, stop loss, policy. This is just what we've set aside for inmate medical. So if it comes in at $1.5 million instead of 1.75, we don't lose that $250,000. That's encumbered for that full fiscal year, but it'll roll over back into the general fund the next fiscal year. So we don't lose it, but it does encumber a dollar amount that will be hopefully sufficient to cover those expenses.
And as we move forward and we get some rulings back on different court cases that are currently out in the system, as far as that cap amount and what has to or does not have to be included as part of that estimation, that number may have to change one way or the other. We just don't know yet. There's not enough information or court rulings to make that determination. Is that fair, Aaron?
So you,
The 1.5 right now is a fair estimation based on current knowns, but there are court cases that are currently out that may or may not dictate how that number has to be estimated moving forward once rulings get made.
Well, that depends on what went into your 1.5. I can't answer it based on the way you just worded it.
That's actually a good question. Is the 1.5 coming from Armor helping us with this estimate, or are
We're-
we coming up with the
The
1.5?
1.5 was based on what we were paying out on those off-site pharmacy costs historically. Looking at moving forward, we determined, based on past, including this fiscal year, what has been paid out for pharmacy and off-site.
So there are estimates. Armor's not providing
Our
an estimate this
Our
early.
estimate, I'm making that estimate based on information and what we're paying out.
Right, right.
But just like they get information from their healthcare provider on certain trends, we are looking at some of those as well. But Armor's not the one making that
Okay.
determination.
Gotcha.
We're the ones that make that determination, and we select what that estimate should be through, I mean, yeah, we have conversations with them, of course. But that's not one, oh yeah, you're gonna say that 1.5 this year. Historically on that, and this has changed this year, and this is the first time it's been done, it used to be, and Armor liked it because they were getting a 12th of that cap every month, was the base amount and the cap amount were all put into one line item, so to speak, divided into 12, and that was their monthly payment. I didn't like the way that was occurring. I didn't think it was true, because we may have been paying for costs that haven't occurred yet on the pharmacy or off-site, so we haven't hit that level. So with the cap now, the payments are set up in two different ways. A blanket set up for the 1.5 million this fiscal year, and that's for the pharmacy and the off-site. And then the blanket set up for the base amount, which was I think like the 6 and some change, and that was divided into 12 monthly payments for their base contract. The base contract is submitted every month. It goes against that blanket under 54036. And then the cap amount, beginning of the year, because of how long it takes for these claims to come in, we didn't start paying against that until a month or two into it. And so as Armor paid for off-site and pharmacy, they submitted an invoice for what they had paid, showed the proof of the payment, and then we pushed it against that blanket. So the first couple of months, those amounts were small, but in March, I think that cap amount was almost $500,000 in invoice, because those claims had finally gotten through the payment process with them, and they had showed proof of payment. So we've changed the way that they're billing and the way we're paying for those, which I think is the best way of doing it, instead of just saying, we're just gonna give you a 12 at a time. And so that's been a change. So back to the initial question, yes, we're making that determination based on past projections, about past history with projecting in. If we have 1.5 this year, I'm hoping that, I'm anticipating that the overall cap amount to be for on-site and pharmacy costs to be less than 1.75 for this year based on where we're trending. But knowing next year, we always anticipate a little bit of an increase. I think the 1.75 is a best guess for the known factors as of today. And I kind of do every 2 years we look at readjusting, because 1 year, if we would have gone off last year's, this year's cap, we would have had to make almost 2.5 million, or 2.25, which would have been 500,000 more than what was probably actually needed. So I try at least give ourselves 2 years of data before we make that cap adjustment, unless something just is night and day that, yeah, we need to make it now. If that makes sense, hopefully.
Yeah.
Danny,
Can I ask,
can you go back to his sheet?
Yes.
how, when you made your estimate, how did you treat the OT-GIV outlier issue?
Until we know how that plays out,
So you're not factoring in?
our 1.75 is based on past billing practices.
Okay. So the outlier's not factored in if it's.
Well, you're gonna have to elaborate more on what you mean by the outlier.
Okay. Well, I'm
Because that's been
trying-
more of a conversation with Danny, and I'm not as, our Danny, not you.
Are you factoring in, how are you factoring in those who are characterized as DOC inmates or municipal inmates exclusively?
We're not factoring those, just historically, we're not paying for those.
There's already been a court decision now that says that we're on the hook medically for anyone who is in our physical
This
custody.
is the first time hearing that, so I,
No, because I brought it up before.
I'll argue with you on it, but okay.
Pre-existing, how are you treating those?
Those aren't factored in. Again, it's based on past billings of what's been paid out.
Down on the M&O. The total difference in the M&O versus last year.
So last year only had medical and food.
I'm trying to get it to add up to the 240. The 240 is basically things like copiers.
240, what, you know, the difference?
Yeah, this other 240 we're trying to add on to the 570, right?
Last year, he didn't have, all of this stuff that's budgeted in M&O, we
Right.
didn't put anything in general fund.
Right.
So, but that number's not gonna equal out to the 285 difference, because
Some other things may have been.
in our number, we had a higher benefits amount. There was a calculation error, so SCUDA took that calculation error out, which was like $361,000. So if you add the 361 plus the 200 whatever thousand, that'll be the amount of the M&O.
When you go back to this number here, the increase we were showing up yesterday, or whenever it was, Tuesday. It doesn't add up. I mean, it was really this number, the increases in this, in the medical, pharmacy, and inmate food. That's all we were trying to come up with, that 5.
Right.
So that number really should be 212, this number, because of the benefits from this calculation, right? That's really the number we were working off of instead of the 5.
Well, scroll down.
Yeah, because you're
No,
taking that
go back.
361, the benefits
Yeah.
miscalculation, and taking it out of the 585,
Yeah.
is what you did, yeah.
Because as of our conversation the other day, this extra stuff wasn't included in that.
Right.
Is that right?
What we did to get to the 585 was we took the difference, which was the $58,000 in salaries, and multiplied that by .1965, which is your, FICA and all, and retirement and all that. It was like 11,000 and change. So it was 70,000 and change, and we added that to the cap increase, the medical increase, and the food increase, and that came up to the 585. But what you're saying, that 212, you're taking the 361 adjustment from the benefits out of that 585 to get to the 211.
Which really would have been part of the initial conversation. Because if we're adding for the known increased expenses, shouldn't we also be subtracting for the known decreased expenses?
Isn't that what you did then?
No, that's what he's done now, it's not what we did in the beginning when we came up with the $585,000, or the
Qualified, I mean, just did.
$510,000.
Right?
Yeah, the 212, based on our conversation, what we were funding here, that should be the number 212, not the 585. It's because of the benefits miscalculation, that's it.
But again, all their M&O expenses are jail-related that were,
Right, but when we were discussing what we had consensus on, the M&O items, we didn't have that yet, so.
So would it be fair to say that what's the M&O expense increase was about $1 million? 1 point.
Yeah,
Would it be fair to say that the need really is the 1.084 minus the savings in salary and benefits?
Plus
the
$70,000.
bottom line is 803.
Which is about 803.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I got you. How does the funding at your requested level today impact your thought process going into September?
You're gonna have to elaborate a little bit more.
Well, I mean, obviously there could be emergencies in medical, things like that. You've already projected a significant revenue loss. I would hope that we don't discover other revenue losses in the next 3 months.
What you're saying is you want us to maintain status quo until September?
No, I guess what I'm saying is, how solid is this 803? Because it seems like every time, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, I really don't, but it just seems like every time, once we've inched it up a little bit, we uncover something else under another shell that is another $1 million or another $1.5 million. And that's how we've gotten to the point where the sheriff's office is at almost 40% of the county budget.
Are you saying, are they gonna come back in September and ask for more money?
Barring any unforeseen.
Right, barring anything that's unforeseen.
I didn't come back this year, did I?
I think so. I think there was still a 1.6 on the table, and
And we took it off.
We took it up on Tuesday.
Yeah, but I have told people for much longer than that we don't plan on asking to put that on the table. So no, I mean,
I'm gonna have, and the other thing that I'm gonna have a really difficult time with is because if you shift these M&O costs to the general fund, whatever the argument is for doing it, if you shift them to the general fund, then it should provide some relief to the special revenue funds.
let me just kind of make this statement. I'll make that work, and I will do everything pennies to make catastrophic, not to ask for money. I now have that ability.
But where I was headed with that is, if we do that, and then we end up making drastic cuts to courthouse security, it's gonna be a disaster.
Well, the way everything was back funded, our revenues and service fee and special revenue, one will be good there. With the 803, 377, I mean, I can make jail work, I can make court processing work, and those have to be some management decisions that the sheriff, elected official, will have to make some decisions on. I want to be able to have a budget.
Which is what I want you to have the budget.
No. I want to feel comfortable with the budget going into July, where you guys think I find joy in coming to ask for money. I don't. I mean, I want to be in a position where I'm not going to have to ask for money. And I truly feel that with what we have on the table now, with the things that we'll address, will put us in a good spot there. And then if we have to figure out the courthouse side, we will. I still like to at least address the courtroom deputy side of it, but I made this year work.
And that's where I'm having a hard time. We made this year work, and now we're not going to make next year work.
But we've also seen some pretty large increases on the medical. In that medical, we're expecting that $626,000 decrease as far as Oklahoma City goes. So you've got $500,000 increase in medical, say $600,000 for rounding. So that's essentially a net difference. It's a change of 1.1 mil.
And I know I'm not the sheriff, and it's not my decision, but I would love to see us even work together. I mean, you and I worked closely together on trying to fight the DOC when they were taking your money away.
And we don't plan on stopping that fight.
Right,
So,
but we've got to get to a day, and I think we're getting closer to it every year. I really do. I think we're moving in a positive direction, but we've got to get to a day where when special revenues go down, it can't be the general fund that's looked to make it up, because it wasn't the general fund that benefited when they went up.
I'm in 100% agreement with you, but here, I mean, the fact of the matter is that detention center operations, when the jail was initially built, was built on the backbone of special revenue funds. So, that's an unfortunate thing that occurred then, and I'm in agreement with you. I want to get to the point where that's not the case. That's my goal. That's my goal. And this is year one, so to speak, of a little bit different management mentality of everything. So give us just, we're gonna try to make everything work we can.
So if he gives you Scout's honor that he won't come back in September?
No, I mean, none of us can do that.
I mean, I can't tell you.
Yeah, no, and I'm not gonna ask, I'm not asking for that. I'm just trying to get a feel for where everything is.
We are, I mean, this fiscal year, we're making some moves here and there to try and absorb the cap overage. I'm waiting to see what some expenses are gonna be on replacement of some lights that we have to get replaced, and so that's gonna kind of play into it a little bit, but, I'm gonna try and absorb both of those until we can get those done this fiscal year. Yeah, my goal is I don't want to come back in September. I want the budget we get for July to be the budget we get for the year.
Karen, can I ask you to jump in if my mouth overloads where I ought to be? Because I have a question, but I'd like for you to say, I'm going to ask John a question, but I'd like for you to tell me if that's a question that my mouth has not, that my brain doesn't understand what I can do. And my question is this, would you be willing, if we can do the 803 now, would you be willing to wait and see where you're at in September for courthouse and courtroom security?
You have a coin, we'll flip it.
No.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna flip.
I think because the statement you just made was you'd like to make it work with what it is. You're not positive that you can. You wish we could look at courtroom security. But in my brain, you're getting $803,000 more than you got last year. You made it work last year. And I know $510,000 of that is, you got to stand up in the
But whenever you look at the increases between stuff that they can't necessarily control, inmate medical, food, and the cap, if you take that dollar amount and you add that with the loss of revenue from the city of Oklahoma City, John has said that's like $1.1 million. So it's $300,000 difference between the 803 and the other. So I think that's what you're saying. If we can get you to 803 now and then maybe reassess in September if
after I just told him not to come back and reassess in September.
Right.
If you need getting all over an issue.
If you need another $300,000, because that $300,000 would kind of make you whole as to last year's money, considering loss of revenue and increase in expenses that you don't have any control over.
Are you the code whisperer today? Because I didn't understand any word.
Essentially, it's a net reduction of about 300 in operating, but
right.
Yeah.
When you take the loss of income plus the added expenses that they can't control,
about $300,000.
It's $1.1 million. If we funded them at $800,000 more, then the difference between those is $300,000. We'll have $300,000 less to operate with this next fiscal year. Then, I mean, if you want to look at it kind of like adjusted for inflation,
but
it'd be
part of
$300,000, and then you could reassess that in September.
Part of that too is a prediction on cap overage and other things. Part of that too is things that could come in the other direction.
Certainly.
Can I ask a question, Cody? Because I'm just trying to understand the process, and I know you're talking about special revenue funds versus general revenue funds, and now Mike's saying he doesn't want me to have courthouse security in September, which I know that's not what you're saying, Mike. I get
Right.
that.
So, yes, you can ask a helpful question.
Well, I'm trying to be helpful.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand, because I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask about the courthouse security, but when you ask a question about waiting until September, are you suggesting that you want the courthouse security now paid out of the general fund and not the revenue fund?
Not necessarily.
Because
I think-
I'm trying to understand where this is all gone.
Right.
And all I know is it didn't work last year to say they made it on that amount of money, because the courthouse security, and especially the courtroom security, we don't have somebody in the elevator now that can get people there timely. We're sending inmates home every day that they can get over here to the 11th floor, that are sitting there with judges and attorneys and everybody else waiting to take pleas, waiting to get them out of the jail, to save the jail some money, but they don't have enough staff to even get them from the 11th floor to the courtroom, so we were sending them back to the jail to bring them back the next day. So we're having so many issues now, but I don't care which fund it comes out of. I'm just trying to ask the question to make sure we're not suggesting that somehow less security, whether you want to call it courtroom or courthouse, that not getting the inmates down and getting them out of there is actually going to wind up costing more money to you guys.
We're not talking about that at all.
We're all around the table looking for solutions together to try to get the sheriff's office what they need. And one of the unknowns today, that will be known in September, that'll likely be known in 2 weeks, is the small claims bill, and whether somebody's able to amend that and get the $10 courthouse
It's
security.
not the way it's currently written, so it has to amend, I mean, it's gonna.
Well, no, but it's not in a bill, but there are folks that may try to amend a bill that is in that section to try to get that money in. I mean, and that'll be known in September.
Okay, and that's all I'm asking.
That's a quarter of the year.
I don't all this. I just know that I've been asked to make sure, because I know my presiding judge is really adamant that we need more, not less.
Right.
And so
And
that's what we're.
But in that specifically, I think that it would take some bright minds to sit down and look at, because you're using the overall system as it would cost the system more if we can't move the inmates. Well, maybe we also need to look at the overall system to work together to try to save some money on the jail on the other
We're all
side.
part of the same family, and that's
Right.
all I'm talking about.
Right, so I don't want to just say, well, if this one little piece isn't funded, then we're going to cut courthouse security, and it's going to cost more money, when in fact, it may.
Let me just say this. We're working very closely with the courts and Judge Henderson specifically on a couple, we'll call them initiatives, that utilize tech instead of people to accomplish hopefully the same thing, to try and streamline in areas in which it's doable. And if what we're going to attempt to try, I'm not sure it's started yet, I think we're close to getting to go into effect, is helpful, then it's going to be something that will slowly, as we're able to expand that to not just one courtroom, but many of the courtrooms. And so there are things in the pipeline that potentially have some savings as far as not having to bring over as many inmates on a given day, which is important for many, many reasons. But back to your question.
Well, now that I sit here and think about the question, that's not your decision anyway.
It's not.
It's the elected official's decision, and so it's not fair to put that question to you.
I can go back and ask the interim, and ultimately he's gonna say, okay, Scudo, well, what do you think? Because that's what's gonna happen. So even still knowing that, I don't wanna give you a direct answer today. But I think if it helps us get to 803, I think it's something that's definitely gonna be a possible card he's willing to use as far as possibly waiting on that till September.
But I guess when you're talking about the numbers, what you're thinking is that there's $245,000 in special revenue for courthouse security, $460,000 in courthouse security, and then we've got the general fund for courthouse security of let me get it back. Special revenues for $6 for courthouse security, and then we got general fund $460,000 for courthouse security. And then we got courtroom security at approximately $567,000. So you're trying to figure out how we do that with the current amount of money coming in until September, and then reevaluate the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I think we all may have a different, not all of us, I think there is a valid difference of opinion in what the county's role is in paying for courthouse and courtroom security. I mean, I get that. I'm gonna land on the side of paying for courthouse and courtroom security and not allowing that to go down below the level it is now because of what we deal with on the fourth floor and what my 30 clerks deal with in the courthouse. What I'm saying is I'd like to I believe that in this budget, that can be made to work, and that's why I'd like some more time for Scooter to have to look at that.
But what you're thinking is that the $245,000 in special revenue funds and the $460 or whatever it is would be used up before you reevaluate what the total cost is for courthouse?
No, not adding any additional funding to the general fund budget for those operations. Looking at how revenues are playing out in service fee special rev and the overall operation of courthouse security in September gives us 3 months under the belt, essentially, of the operations during this next fiscal year to reassess financially where the sheriff's office stands without reducing courthouse security operations and, I believe, not going to put words in your mouth, but any future management decisions that may occur between now and September.
Well, yeah, that's just hard. I mean,
But that's hard, impossible to predict, but essentially, that's kind of my understanding.
The 803 would it would keep all the detention officers in general fund. It would pay 70% of court out of general fund, and it would pay for all the court processing out of general fund, and the courthouse and courtroom security would be a special revenue. It would be on the sheriff's special revenue side.
And if all those expenses had been in general fund last year, and we're talking about a significant piece of those being half of that being other than medical and food, right? Out of that $1 million increase in M&O. Had that been in general fund last year, we wouldn't need to be increasing it $1 million. That's funky contrast. But I'm sorry. That's it. So I guess what I'm looking at, maybe this will help curb the growth in the sheriff's general fund budget in future years.
That's that's our desire to some extent. I'm trying to get to where our staffing levels still aren't really where they need to be. I mean, everyone, I think, is understanding of that, but the staffing levels necessarily aren't where they're at. We're running into the same issues that you're running into with pay equity and some of those things, which attribute to us not being able to maintain current staffing levels where they should be, and our turnover is high. And it's getting to the point now, too, where just hiring is becoming even more difficult than it was 2 years ago. And so, we're seeing that occur. Trying to fill some of our vacancies in the jail has been extremely difficult, just in terms of filling positions. And so, we've been fortunate that, an agency in the city is disbanding. There's a few employees with that agency that went to the pool of hostile employees that we were able to directly hire a few to fill needed gaps in the detention center without investing a whole lot more time and energy in certain training. So that's been a benefit to us, and these people still have jobs. And it's not affecting our budget because it's in positions that we have, through attrition, have emptied at some point this year. So, yeah, there's definitely things in the future that still need to be addressed to solidify everything, but the 803 would go a long way to getting us where, hopefully, that we're getting closer to that point, where we're looking at primarily like a medical increase, something of that nature.
Just so I'm sure, 33 people total for courthouse security and courtroom, that's your level now. You're not adding more people for that stuff.
That's my understanding, no. That's kind of, we can't, trying to go below that. Before we cut over 10% of that.
I just want to make sure you weren't asking for more. I'm not saying cut it, but.
No, we had six extra requests on there for courtroom deputies, and on this figure, that's not put into consideration. And so that's.
The 33 is your security level.
That's
roughly now.
Roughly now, that's my understanding, yeah.
Okay, well, the 803, we've had 2 hours of discussion, and we can have more if we need to. But I'm going to need to.
Please, no.
visit the facilities in a minute, so,
Let's take a break.
do we want to consider, does anybody want to reconsider the 803 into the adjustments column before we go to break?
I think so. When we had the discussion, we're at the end of the discussion, let's consider it.
Okay. Well,
I'm a yes.
Christie,
Yes.
No.
Larry,
No.
Rick?
No.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Okay. No consensus yet.
Just so we can wrap up a little box in this whole thing, I think we ought to have a fiscal impact of whenever we get any of these grants for security officers, because they're always pitched to the commissioners as a grant that will be paid for. Well, now we know that they are not paid for fully. We pick up the tab for a quarter or a third of the year.
Well, no, that's a misstatement, let me explain
After
why.
so many years.
Let me explain, I understand from the conversation where you may have got it. On the COPS grant specifically, because that's the one that, for school resource driven, they add positions. Under the COPS grant itself, that person's salary and benefits was fully paid through the grant.
For the entire year.
Yes.
Usually the grant's only good for so many
Yeah.
years.
And then the
then-
second year, the
No,
second
no.
year drops off.
Up through the fourth year. At the fourth year is when it drops. So, and then once that grant is, but with the grant, you're required to, that fourth year is a requirement as part of the grant. The cost grants are on a 4-year plan. Years 1, 2, and 3, that deputy's salary and benefits are fully covered.
At the cost that we pay.
My understanding, yes. And then the fourth year is when it, yes, the grant covers 75% of that person, the school covers their 25. And then the fourth year, it's the 100%, it's gotta be paid for, and that's when we cover a little bit, the school covers a little bit. And then after that fourth year, is up, then that determination is made, okay, they're no longer in the cost grant MOU. Does the school want to pick up more of the tab, or do they want to remove that deputy year 5? And we're starting to get to that point where we're going to enter into that 5th year, coming up in the next fiscal year, I believe, is when the line will actually hit. So that's when I think Steve asked the question if we plateaued on SROs or we're going to start coming down or go up. We're going to have that answer, I would assume, here in the next year or so, as these COP grants, which I really want to say there's 6 to 10 maybe that are still in that COPS grant, and we'll know where those are going to reside. So, but your concern as far as what the financial impact for some of these grants are, I've got no issue when they're presented to the budget board, or sorry, the BOCC for approval, providing additional information on that, and try and lay out maybe if it's impacted, and we try not to look at grants, when we do grants for equipment, so to speak, like the JAG grant, those are a wash. We front fund them and then we get fully reimbursed for those. The Oklahoma Highway Safety Grant is fully paid for by the Federal Highway Safety Office through the Oklahoma Highway Safety Office. All we're doing is we're front funding it, which we've taken drug funds and put those.
That's okay, I understand, I was misinformed,
Yeah.
but I just think it's
We're gonna-
wrong, frankly, for our county to be competing to do something that doesn't promote what we're supposed to do with our core functions, the jail and courthouse. And we're hiring someone, I don't care if it's Uncle Sam's money, because it's still somebody's taxpayers. It just doesn't make sense for us to be hiring a deputy to do something that's not a core function of this county, period.
Look,
That's what I
I get.
I want to take a break.
Look, I want to respond to that, though.
Well-
I deserve to respond to that. I understand where you're coming from on those. The COPS grant, I'm going to use the COPS grant because that's the one that's really, it adds a person to staffing level. So, example, these COPS grants are about to end. The schools have decided, you know what? We're not going to renew it. We now have a body without a job in that function. They've been an employee with us for 3 or 4 years. we know with how high our attrition levels are in the jail, that we're gonna have positions in the jail that are needing to be filled. We have deputy positions in the jail that need to be filled that deal with inmate transports to and from the hospital and so forth. So there will definitely be a spot that we can, almost guarantee there's an opening at their level in the jail if that grant, that's funded in the jail, if that grant runs out, then we'll be able to slide them into. And the benefit to us is, since they've been on that grant for 3 or 4 years, we know them, we've trained them, they're very well versed, especially with if the policy continues that their free time is spent in the jail. We've cross-trained them, and we don't have to worry about hiring the person. They absorb into an empty spot. And so there's definitely some benefit you can look at in different ways. I try and take a positive approach, but I will take your concern with some of these grants, and I'll make sure, I'll make a note of that. I do a lot better job of articulating the ins and outs of all of it to the commissioners, and that being said, not just to the commissioners, but to everybody, because everyone's going to get that, because we all sit through those meetings on a weekly basis. And so I understand your concerns there, and that's something that we can definitely be more informative on and explain, and be a little bit more, show how the movement post, if the grant runs out, how that would work, so they can make a even more informed discussion. But like you, I gotta use the restroom, but I just wanted to say that at least.
Good.
So hopefully that will help some of that understanding you have. Chairman, I would ask for a 10 or 15 minute recess.
Second.
My eyes are yellow.
What time are we going to today if we have a 15-minute recess?
Good question. Better question.
I mean, I almost, well, I can, I'm not sure where, after that exhaustion.
I would at least like to briefly look over the new estimate of needs that Juvenile looked at. There's a couple things on there that I noticed that I think they still need to address, and I have really need to, Jamie. So, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes, I'd like to come back and at least discuss that briefly, because I think we're close to that.
Somebody else's fault.
Huh?
You just wanna look at somebody else's?
No, I mean, I don't.
That's fine.
But I think there's something there that I just want to.
Before 4:15.
All those in favor?
Done today. Let's just go to 3:30, 15-minute break. There's a motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
I agree, I'm tired of the viewers too.
Yeah, we got tornadoes up in Logan County. Yeah. And it's pretty significant, you know.
I felt like somebody would put that into Larry, I'm willing to give it some more so that consensus. So, what I was gonna say was, if we're not gonna do it that way, then let's adjourn and come back, or recess and come back prepared to do it that way going forward, and start working towards the final document. But, we can look at juveniles and go, and then do that.
Do we have real numbers for juvenile now?
I realize I've learned that.
I know. You're clear what you're saying. I don't forget you like that. It's coming. I just be patient.
I came up with a solution. We can get it off the wall and put it in. When we have issues, we put it in. Well, my only issue is, I don't think I have a problem with anybody, unless we can last 2 minutes, even that last minute, I'm going to, yeah.
So, go ahead and
we'll just stay till midnight.
This is already a form of suicide. Killing me. I know it. I'm a budget sore sitting here, and it's just hard to rehash things, the same thing over and over. And it's even harder, I think, sitting in the audience. It's one thing when you're participating,
We're in the off
and you're
hours.
just kind of bouncing around. Right.
Yeah, they could just get me by a dog.
That's what I think it's even harder out here.
But they're not speeding. Catch up to somebody, and they're not pulling over a bad guy.
There's risk to everything.
When there's no routine traffic stop.
There's never a routine traffic stop.
Exactly. It's an extraordinary event.
Well,
And we need to remember to tell the reporters, when they talk about a badly decomposed body, I think technically it's a well-decomposed body.
When did they say that?
Well, they usually say, police have discovered a badly decomposed body. No, that's a very well-decomposed body. It's just done exactly what nature wanted it to do. Anyway, you've been watching the cop shows? You watch cop shows, or is that too close to home? I've been watching Amazon's Bosch.
Oh, I love the Bosch. That's
I'm
what,
about halfway through season 2.
some of them I like, some of them, yeah. I mean, some of them sensationalize different things and some don't. I mean, some of them do a pretty good job of tying in some parts, and then because of what sells these days, they try and overblow other parts. But my wife makes fun of me because all the shows that she likes is all watch with her judicial related type stuff. I won't watch her RuPaul's Drag Race and other like Grey's Anatomy shows. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good. So she's
Grey's
like,
Anatomy is very good.
she always goes, I get
That's
stuck
still on?
watching all your cop shows and you're not watching any of my stuff. I'm like, well,
If it was any good, I would watch it.
It is good. Scandal.
yeah, we haven't watched the last 2 seasons, but we do The Big Bang Theory and
Blacklist.
I like the Big Bang.
I want to go back and start that from the beginning,
That's
but
fantastic.
like on Netflix, most of my shows I watch now are on Netflix and Amazon.
Me too.
I mean, I like all the Marvels that are on, just finished Iron Fist.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good.
I can't wait for the Man in the High Castle to come out.
Oh, have you seen season 2 yet?
Yeah, I have.
We've started it, we just haven't finished it yet.
It's pretty good
I
stuff.
like
Man in
it.
the High Castle.
Man in the High Castle.
Yeah.
The first season was great. We got 2 episodes in, but we started watching it because that was one of the first shows that came out with Dolby Vision HDR on the TV I had. And so that's why I wanted to, but we're going to rewatch season 1 because it's been so long, and then binge watch it. But Bosch is great. Yeah, but all the Marvels on Netflix you like, there's a
Marvels?
It's Iron Fist, Daredevil.
It's on Netflix?
Luke Cage. There it is.
I didn't know you could actually do anything on Amazon other than buy things.
No, Amazon's.
We have
Prime is all kinds of.
We have one of those.
Prime. I want to get one of the Kindle things and get the
books. We have one of the Amazon Echoes in our kitchen,
Yeah.
and we use that. One, it controls half the lights in our house, but 2,
You have to buy a controller?
yeah, a lot of it ties into a lot of the aftermarket stuff that's out there. So we have the Philips Hue system for most of our.
Used to call like in marketing classes an early adopter.
And then, yes, that's very true.
The first one that everybody doesn't buy, and then the second one where everybody says, I like that part and that part and that part.
Yeah, I made the mistake of buying the HD DVD player. But no, we use Alexa we'll just power play music through Amazon Prime, and it's a plethora of different things.
Well, I can do that with my little cartridge thing, I can say,
Right.
play something.
Well, Echo's like a built-in speaker, so we don't have to run through the TV.
Your Walkman?
No, it's like a
Sony
cassette
Walkman.
deck.
No, he's still on the old vinyl with the little tube that comes out.
I got the 8 tracks, and I'm trying to figure out if I want to take them and just convert them all to cassettes first.
Yeah, but my dude.
I'm going slowly in the
Trying to get like a Blu-ray or
Gotta go see.
Yeah, I know.
But I was looking at my glove box in my Miata the other day, and I found a couple of cassettes that I had in there, and I had my radio, it's a 95, my radio ran.
The new one's coming out June 16th.
USB port and everything.
Yeah. What's the
Auxiliary input.
The old,
And
the
I
dash
always,
reminds me
you can never
of
hear
my
anything
nephew.
over the crowd touchdown.
No, and one of my family members, my wife says that will be you when you're 60 or 70. The man I got was great.
So it was,
What's the premise of that show?
It's like if the Germans and
Oh,
Japan won
I have seen that.
during War II.
Yeah.
pretty good stuff.
It's interesting. It's definitely
He's that early morning.
something I wouldn't have thought of,
Yeah, okay.
but as liking. The first season really drew you in. Second season, people told me to get towards the end, it got better, but the first 2 episodes we watched.
Yeah, you're right, yeah,
But Bosch is really good.
Yeah, Bosch is really good.
What is it? Mozart goes
Bosch,
to, Mozart goes
BLCH,
to the jungle, or Mozart in the jungle.
Police
It's got a lot of
detective, it's really pretty
awards
good
that's
stuff.
decent.
I gotta write that down.
Yeah, Mozart in the jungle, or Mozart Jungle, something like that.
I've seen this.
It's gotten stellar reviews and awards.
You watch it? Mozart in the Jungle?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bosch,
I thought you were
a
champagne.
series of books.
We're not doing champagne yet, but if you can get the commissioners to lift that rule for a day, I'll, by God, bring it.
You know what they say, it's always easier to ask forgiveness than permission.
Exactly.
That's why I asked my lawyer to step in if I stepped on it a minute ago, because I'm pretty good at stepping on it.
Evidently you didn't, she didn't say anything.
What's the difference between
She was
stepping
rolling her
on
eyes.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can do both. What was that?
She was rolling her eyes up.
Well, hard when it's so hard that you just can't, and it's really,
That's funny.
it's so fresh.
Who was that Rick was talking about?
Anderson.
Oh, yeah.
Cooper.
Yeah, and it's when it's fresh.
You going back in?
Well, he's trying to come up with a working definition between.
On it and in it.
I moved since it's 3:30 that we return to regular special meeting session thingy.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, can we take a look at the new juvenile estimate of needs now?
You bet.
It was emailed yesterday, late yesterday. Our most excellent clerk emailed it to us.
Most excellent, is this Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
I get punchy at the end of the day, obviously.
That was fun. Most
Yeah.
excellent. Mr. Chairman.
Are we allowed to start discussing? I went through this in pretty good detail after we received it this morning. I exchanged a few emails with the director as far as it goes, but I just want to bring everyone's attention to the dental health and life insurance line, 52045. This current year, they budgeted $825,000 and some change. But what she put in there in her estimate of needs is almost 1.4 for a difference of about $550,000, which is huge. Going back and looking just at the last 5 or 6 months of what their FTE levels are on this document, I think it's 147 people is what she put on here. And they fluctuated, like on average, over the last 5 months, about what they've had. Some months a little bit higher, some were a little bit under. So I also went back and looked at what they were paying out as far as healthcare goes in each of these months, and it was averaging, give or take, $2,000 by around $70,000. And so looking at the entire year as a whole, they were on track to spend for healthcare coverage around $825,000. I think they were close to $819,000 is what I think I ballparked. I left my printout at the office. And so when if you go to the salary computation, I tried to figure out what they did, and going down to the very bottom line where they've got healthcare coverage, she included healthcare coverage for all 147 people. And where she put additional staffing, she added 34, it looks like, to get her up to 147. And when I emailed her, she goes, oh, I guess they missed that. So they're gonna look at that a little bit closer, because they haven't added or subtracted, just going off their averages, what they had last year as far as healthcare coverage. Just taking their last 5 months of the 147 level FTE, the 820 some odd thousand covers their healthcare costs. So that was just a mathematical oops, I think, on their part.
If you take the 34 out of that additional staffing,
Right.
it's right there at it.
Right, pretty darn close.
And how much of the 327,000 increase in salaries and wages is new staffing?
And she didn't break that part out. I asked her, an email on that too.
She didn't break it out.
She didn't break it out in this one. Because in the last estimate of needs, she had broken out kind of ones they had already hired or started in March and so forth. And so 147 people, they're averaging about 147 now, give or take maybe one. I spent a lot of time on people. I saw that number for healthcare, and like, that's off, so that's where I put most of my effort. And she asked if she's going to come back and talk about it. So I think she's expecting to come back and kind of explain everything over.
Do you know what the transfer to salary from Friends? Oh, that was in 16, 17, never mind, that's not new. Okay. Wonder why 409,000 increase in salaries and wages. I wonder what goes into that.
Well, 227,251.20 is raises.
Okay. And so the rest would either be raises that were given this year that weren't funded last year, or additional positions above and beyond. I know we didn't even look at FTEs very closely last year, but.
Hey, Danny, will you go, is that their estimate of needs document there?
Mhm.
Will you go to their salary computation?
Mhm.
Where did they, did she put in their raises?
Oh, on the new one, no, she did.
Yeah.
You're right, I'm still at the old one pulled up. Yeah, there's no raises on the new one, but the annual salary
Went up.
is higher than it was before the raises were in.
It is higher than what it was.
Yep.
Even if you include her new positions, and then back out the raises, you factor what that might be. Looking at her initial estimate of needs,
Mm-hmm.
where she had broken out the additional staffing or vacancies to be filled, if we left those there and just backed out the raises altogether, what it would put her at? My computer's on.
Well, sections 1, 2, and 3 on the old one was 5.1 million, so you take if I understand your question correctly, it's good. If you look at sections 1, 2, and 3 of the initial budget, and you take the 227,000 out for pay raises.
Right.
That was 4.89 million.
And what she submitted was 4.7, oh, yeah, so that's her, I mean, hate to assume what she did, but it looks like those additionals got rolled up into the top.
And so here, if you add up the employees that she has listed on this sheet as full-time employees, and can I just put them in a column
I
next
got
to it?
147.
I didn't get 147, I got 137.
I got 147. But I added manually, so.
I just made a call off to the side and did auto sum.
1, 4, 5, maybe on the wrong sheet, 1, 6, 4, 14.
Which one are you looking at? The newer
Or
one?
the new one, yeah, that you just emailed, 30, there it is. She has 39 detention officer ones, not 29.
There's your 10.
But, so that's 147, but then down here in vacancies, she has 4 employees plugged in. So that's actually requesting to be funded at a level of 151 employees.
Which 4?
1 part-time LP
Those are
and...
part-time
Those are
people.
part-time.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, those are part-timers.
Staffing.
I think we're stepping in the right direction on it. I think there's still some questions that need to be answered. I didn't really see the answers to some of these in the letters when I read them.
So DHS does pay us, right? That's okay today.
Well, I've got a kind of a silly question. If you look at the breakdown that she sent as well, in the middle of the page, it has fiscal year 16-17, and it has a number of FTEs. It says 152 full-time and 4 part-time for 154 FTEs. Two over from that, it says fiscal year 17-18-3, which I'm assuming that's related to her most current estimate of needs request. You got 147 full-time, 4 part-time, so you got 5 less FTEs, right? Well, not 5 less FTEs, but 5 less overall employees. It says FTE, but some of the 4 of those are part-time. But it's the same number of part-time both places, so it's still 5 fewer FTEs in 17-18 than 16-17, but we still have an increase in salary
Right.
of $327,000.
You said, which page is that on her?
It's on her cover letter.
It's her
Yeah, Amanda, which page is that?
Page 1,
Okay,
kind of in the middle.
I got you.
But then, if you look at that top column, the difference fiscal year 17-18, she just compared the first and the third, but not to 16-17. But yeah, it's still, we've got
147.
5 fewer FTEs, but an increase of $327,000.
That's my question. Is she going off of where's she getting the 152 from? Is 152 coming from her estimated needs from last year?
I have no clue.
Because
She says in here, health insurance figures were adjusted to account for the 147 full-time positions at the family rate.
So she's just budgeting to, that all of them are gonna have insurance.
Yeah. All the current ones that she has that are on somebody else's insurance are gonna leave, and the ones she hires are gonna take family, and all that's gonna occur on July 1.
And we don't have an election period. That's why, when we did ours, I mean, we can contact John Wilkerson and find out exactly what the, you know, how many family and how many single coverages.
I tried calling this morning, I did leave a voicemail, that did that question. They've got that where it spits out pretty quick. I don't know whether they're getting 152 from this fiscal year, if that number is what they submitted as part of their estimated needs, what that was their actuals.
Let me try to get that number, John, real quick.
On the medical?
Yeah.
I think it would be helpful, yeah, if you could.
This, what's the new, is this formula stuff down at the bottom, is this just all kind of, pipe dream stuff? Is this just what it could be? Or does it have some basis in reality? This 181.38 per day, and this 210.80 per
What she
day,
did-
changes made,
She broke down the detention expense to figure out what the daily rate should be, that way you can figure out what OJA should pay, and
They were looking at.
but this is just what we think they should pay, not what they're paying.
Right.
They're paying like $3 million or something.
She was taking 85%.
2.3 million.
She was taking 85% of 85%, so it was skewing the numbers. And I haven't looked at that.
60% of the time, I'm right, all the time.
Let me bring that.
Thank you.
PED.
Forgot to charge it. It lasted 2 days ago.
Let me go get you a Snickers.
For a Kit Kat, so you can give me a break.
Anywhere for a while.
Danny, I remember they did the transfer of the 93-137 stuff, and it didn't follow over into the columns. Can you verify, because what I had the PDF that I was looking at, so it didn't tell me the formula. Do we know that those numbers, it appeared as if they did, but
Yeah, I do. Yep,
okay.
included.
So one thing that's clear though about this entire process is OJA is not covering the 85% for the beds they're supposedly contracted for.
I think there's maybe a mix-up thinking that the county was supposed to do 85%.
Does anybody know there was some article about trying to send the juveniles to Pot County and redo? Would that have any impact on what they're sending to us, or no? Anybody know?
I haven't seen.
I read an article in the paper the other day about
Yeah.
that.
I mean, there's a bill in the legislature to change stuff, but I don't know if my understanding is there's two different statutes, one that applies to counties over a certain amount. There's like 3 or 4 counties, Oklahoma County being one of them, correct? So I don't know if any of these changes or any of that would apply to all 77 counties or just the ones that are over a certain population.
And I don't know if it's been signed off on yet either. I heard it's been submitted.
It's only like 5 and 3 or something like that.
Is it pretty small?
They're paying based on a per diem rate that appears to be lower than what it should be. And so that may be that was never looked at or caught in some of the contract that gets approved.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something the VOCC and juvenile can have a conversation on.
At the
they're gonna, I mean, I was just knowing the state and having a conversation with them on DOC rate stuff, they're gonna do everything they can to not increase it, but they're different, but they're a lot different as far as what OJA does for, well, thank you, juvenile than DOC, for the county jail.
At the risk of opening Pandora's box, which since we're just waiting on numbers anyway, might as well.
I don't know how long that's gonna take, we could move on to something else, if he's on
Is
the
it
phone.
6 times more expensive to incarcerate a juvenile than to incarcerate an adult?
6 times sounds high, but I don't know.
Well,
Yours was $30 a day or $32 a day?
His name is John Scooter, not John Google.
like, well, it's a little, it's like 34 and some change, but,
Oh, okay.
I
And
mean,
this is 181 or 210.
well, I can wonder if food prices will be higher, but here's another thing to look at too. They have 80 at max,
Right.
and we're at 2,400, 2,500.
They don't have language on the schedule.
Right, so that plays into it a little bit. Plus requirements for juveniles are also higher. So,
Yeah, I knew they were higher, I just didn't know they were that much higher.
I mean, if you start comparing our per diem cost numbers around the state, I mean, Tulsa's is 50 or 60.
Their judicial set for him?
Yeah.
I can give some unofficial numbers.
No, they're.
Unofficial?
Their operating costs are.
What's it take to get official?
But their population is
Okay.
lower.
Let's go with the unofficial then. Without objection,
What are we doing?
we're getting some unofficial numbers, unless you want to pay for official numbers.
Can't get that from stuff.
All right. Okay, for April juvenile, it's 77, as premiums. 29 of those were family, 77 of those are single. Those are unofficial.
77 and what, 29? Okay, what they put on here was
That's about
231.
So that's about 106 total?
So it's 77 employees. That's,
Well, you said 77 and 29.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 77 total. 29 of that was family,
And the rest single.
77 single.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
I thought I was stupid, I'm going, I don't, that doesn't compute.
So if we want any better information than that, we have to pay?
Maybe we ought to wait for the official.
I prefaced it. All right, 106 total.
There we go.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm not real good at math.
So what was, 77 and 29, correct? Is that your answer, 77 single, 29?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you need to vote for it?
Not sure I have any. Right?
Anybody done deciphering?
Well, we got 3 people working on it.
No, there's definitely more than that.
Well, I know, it's 3 by 8.
Yeah.
I got 821, 340,
87 single,
although I can't hardly read my chicken scratch, so I could be wrong.
77 single, 29 family.
Should we withdraw my
What
number,
number
G, which was match?
Not Danny.
Yeah, you know,
I have another.
We could average all 4 numbers.
Do you have the electoral college vote?
Yeah, that's right, I thought that was 369 to 399.
Y'all vote, please.
Yeah,
It is, it's 851.
And the winner is Lala
Oh, my God.
yeah, that's right.
No, wait.
All right.
Back to the drawing board.
No, wait, there's more. Wait,
Hold on,
official?
Hold on.
Do you want me to interpret it?
April's numbers?
Let me go check, I didn't do this Monday.
I said we let Matthew explain them this time.
What are those numbers? Are they significantly different?
Does that have a wax seal on it?
Has it been notarized?
tough crowd. This has 74 single and 32 family.
I like the other numbers better.
Let's go with the sticky, 74 and what? Or we can,
No.
no?
No, we go with one.
Okay.
That came out of Munis.
Oh, okay.
So let's definitely go with Munis numbers.
That's what they got charged for the month of April,
Oh.
the numbers I used.
So 851, 340.
That's what I have, 851, 340.
That's what I got too.
Yeah, I definitely like the first numbers better.
Definitely.
Of course, you're dropping this water on in 6 minutes. Good water
Even at that, the other number was 875, so we're only talking $24,000 difference.
Well, but
Still not close to the other number.
Well, she has 468,000 in additional staffing in section 3 for health insurance. Which section 3 is blank.
Right.
So 851, 340, using Danny's numbers. Well, that's a whole lot better than the 1.4 or so that we were.
So you could reduce that by 468,384. Right?
When's that through, Danny?
This is through April. That's the number I gave you for April. So that's, yeah, that's 10 months worth.
What is that number?
681, 151.
So an average of 68,115 a month. It says 817,381.20 annually.
So April's numbers are way up, over their average for the year.
Yeah, I went back and pulled their, like, I did the same with theirs, that with ours, like, the average per employee, it was somewhere, I had on my computer, and it's like 480 and 500 per person on average. Hold on, if I can pull it up and email on my phone.
If Scooter wouldn't take it as long earlier, then his computer would still be charged.
It's a good observation.
Well, I think the April number, that 825, that's higher than what the average is, so I think that's a good conservative number to go with.
But on the salary side.
I don't know. So when you took that number out, what does that do to the difference in salaries and benefits from last year?
It puts,
If we take this out,
almost $200,000 more in fringe.
On to what?
Than last year. Almost $200,000 more in fringe than last year.
Over their last 5 months, going back to December, they averaged 71,115 per month. And their average number of employees, 146. They had a high month in February of almost 76,000. And their lowest month was 64 in December. But December was also their highest month of, those probably new hires, and their insurance kicked in February for them.
Now, what did you say about 146? That was the average number of employees?
Since December per month, that was on payroll by the county post. They had 139 in April, 145 in March, 148 February, 148 December, and 150. I'm sorry, January, 150 in December. Average 146. her average health for the last 5 was 71,115, for an average per person of 487.09.
Well, and if she's saying that they need 147 full-time and 4 part-time, she's got the 4 part-time broken out separately. If she's averaged 146 since December, I don't know what the beginning of the fiscal year was, but I did take year-to-date actuals, I pulled yesterday or the day before, an average of $358,752 a month in salaries and benefits, which comes out pretty close to where they currently are. Well, I'll give you the exact number. $4.3 million. Possibly not including the 10 days.
Well, yeah, those are actually 5.624 now, right?
What'd you come up with?
Well, it's just taking the average of their salary for this year through April, 10 months, and then using that average for the next 2 months, which March and April were lower, you know, they'd hired some more, but March and April were both lower than February, actually lower, significantly lower than January, right at December, way lower than November, you know, right at October, a little higher than September. So, I mean, it's all kind of, I don't expect, based on these trends, for the numbers to be higher than the average. The average would be $4,305,028.32.
That's with the 10 days.
No. Come on, you're asking too much of this calculator.
If I just took the average, 358,752,363, and then added the 10 days back, so that's about 4.4 million.
Okay. But that salary expense, that's going to include the part-time wages that she has a separate line item for. So you would subtract the part-time from that number to get the number that you would have in the full-time column.
But overall, it covers, 4.4 should cover full-time and part-time.
Yes, according to, yeah.
Which is
But
what
I'm
she
saying
had
if
last
we're-
year.
I'm just saying if we're adjusting these line items, then you would just back the one out, but your total overall salary and wages would be the 4.4, which is what was budgeted this current fiscal year.
Right, and based upon the health census we went with, plus .1965 of 4.4, her fringe is up about $100,000. So her fringe would be 1.715,940.
Why is the fringe up?
Because the health census must be different now than what she estimated for last year.
Well, what she has there in that column is about the exact same number that we put in.
What did I put in?
Well, it's good
That's-
you use
that's
that number.
her yeah.
Do what?
That's because he's already typed that number in there, that's why.
No, I'm talking about the column next to it, the 16.
Right.
The
You just
fiscal year
use
16, so-
that number.
Yeah, it's what it would look like if we use that number. So,
What's that? It's
Yeah, see, look,
93.
my,
Right.
so my fiscal year 16, 17, she put in 825, 821. We just did our calculations, and he put it in at 825.
Oh, no, he just grabbed the 825 to plug in.
Oh, okay. I thought that was based on the calculation.
No, they just took it on a little route.
Okay,
Simple.
so if that's the 825, then what's the difference in fringe?
Just somewhat.
It's that 93, is the formula?
The 162.
higher retirement, higher taxes, and then that 93.
Well, the retirement should be the
Oh,
same
okay.
if we're going with the same salary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
minus 49,109.76 on line 32. You should, if you're gonna keep the salary at the same level, then that 12% should be at the same level, so you can just subtract 49,109.76 from that number right there, and that'll give you the same number. There you go. Oh.
But if you look at salaries and wages, in the top column, there's a transfer to salary from fringe. Okay, I got it. There's a positive and a negative associated with each of those. Okay.
What's the bottom line now?
Well, I mean, are we keeping the salary the same?
If, you know, if we were to put all salary and fringe the same, that would quickly show us the bottom line of what she's asking for in M&O, basically. And that would be even written out, broken out.
Yeah, 20 grand in, sorry, it's a $2 grand increase in travel.
Oh, it's getting late.
And then a decrease in capital.
Back to the question, was she had enough in M&O to move 94,000 out of it?
Why does she need 126,000 more?
Right.
We got
That's,
93 in there.
That would be
So you-
$126,000.
Yeah, you need to, she's not asking for,
That's double this.
Well, really, the net is, between capital and M&O this year and last year, about 80.
Yeah.
We're in new things in capital with the computers and
stuff in the audit.
garbage disposal.
The difference column? Yeah.
I think garbage disposal and capital. Yeah, it was like all that extra stuff, she's had it in there for the audit.
Yeah.
Well, and on that last line, am I looking at this functionally wrong? 93,855 down in M&O, but then she shows that as where's the second column, 17, 18, no. So she took 93,855 out of M&O, but then she says that's part of her increase, it's a positive number in that next column.
Right, that's what we were saying.
Yeah.
You really, you have to kind of,
You have to ignore that and look at the bottom line. That's a look, I wish that line was just off.
basically, if you're looking at the grand total of all expense categories, those all offset. But if you're just wanting to look at M&O, you need to
32,784, you need to take that number out. Gotcha.
So since it's the bottom line, she's looking at, what's it, difference of like 75?
Whoa, but that's after.
That's keeping salaries and benefits the same as this year.
Right.
I'm afraid she's gonna, something about 10 people, and I'm afraid she's gonna, we looked at the numbers.
But Danny, on the salary, you put the 4.264, but she had to transfer 93,000 in from fringe use. So we probably need to account for that, but then take the 93,000 out of the fringe.
No, it should be
And
right on the front page, because it would be after adjustments.
but that wasn't after adjustments. That number
The
was put in.
4.4 was it?
The 4.4 was, but just a second ago, it didn't say, here, I'll show you.
Okay.
This is what she sent over.
Yeah, he just, Dan, if you just add in that bottom,
And then that, which comes to the 4.4, but what they did
Negative,
was
it'll
they took
balance
this
out.
number and pulled it over that, so it didn't pull this one.
go way down to the bottom, where they had the transfer, just make that the same as it was. And that should all zero out. Just make it a negative 93,137.
Yeah.
I know, but we're saying if this is her salary base, taxes,
Right.
retirement,
Yeah, employment's the,
Is the one
but
that's
see,
there.
how much of this is full-time salaries? Because we're adding just 12%.
well, and the other thing too, that she's not factoring in here is their overtime, and they have overtime line items, so.
So we're gonna assume that's.
I mean, 'cause they're essentially, I would assume they're paying their overtime through what they're saving in attrition.
Okay, so right now they've paid out 76,000 in overtime this fiscal year.
Yeah, which is a lot more than what was depicted in the first couple handouts we got, explanation handouts.
So the extra money that was moved up pretty much will cover
Overtime.
possibly that same level of overtime.
Then on that one that you're working on, do we want to just move that $93,000 up to the overtime?
And
Well, it doesn't matter.
because you put all, I mean, we appropriate the cost to that 51,000 level, and they expend down to it.
I think that the fringe is right then, because it should be less, because all the numbers are close to the same, with the exception of the unemployment, she had asked for less
Right.
this year of 12,000, so.
I think ultimately you have to look at the bottom line, look at the line item stuff on the salaries.
No, that can't be right, because if she pays out this amount in salary, the 4.4, got taxes on the total,
Both those top lines should be the same. Look at your formula in the D column. It's just that was just a number. One's 400, one's not, so the one on the right's off.
yeah, that's the number she had in there.
Yeah.
That, these are all just calculations.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, we decided that number was close, so we can't include the negative.
Why can't you include that as negative? You have to.
Because you include the positive at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but these are all calculations, right?
Yes, except for the bottom line.
I'm just saying, if she pays out 4.4 million in salary next year,
I see what you're saying.
this is how it's gonna calculate out.
Yeah,
I got you.
I got you. Good, so 88 more. Wish they would have put it in there like that.
You plus or minus, both plus and minuses, for it to see a grand total that's accurate. But when you're looking at just an expense category,
Well, I mean, this needs that line item. Just tell what this 93,855 is used for in capital. And this should be, this 93,855 should be taken out of these categories.
More than last year.
yeah.
Right.
To get a true comparison.
Well, in that $175,000, well, I mean, the $41,000 decrease in capital, but that is also a late or a transfer, right?
Danny, what did you have total in benefits in fringe? Okay. When looking at their benefits, kind of like I did on the salary, I had averaged that out over 10 months and then just multiplied it by 12. But monthly is $132,759.88. That would annualize to $1,593,118.56.
I'm just assuming they had, the only thing that's gonna change on the formula if we move at 93 up to their overtime is gonna be the defined contribution. That's only gonna go down about $9,800.
No, because that's,
If you're looking at the overall, we don't pay retirement on overtime. Essentially looking at the bottom line, factoring that. And we don't pay retirement on overtime, part-time.
But I think he's only doing it on that top column.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
So if we look at capital,
Hmm?
so we look at capital. Capital, she's got the 33,000 for 54 new computers, another 6,000 for licenses. I know they're round numbers, Kristen. The 13,000 for the garbage disposal. The office equipment lease is probably ought to be a phenomenon, but that's okay.
No, it's got the Concord lease, the actual lease has gotta be a capital line item.
Okay, that's fine, but what, but the other,
Yeah, the lease on equipment is a capital expense according to the clerk's office.
including the auditors.
Yeah, I know. But it came from the clerk's
That
office.
was a write-up years ago.
I think this last year was the first year we had it budgeted that way for the entire fiscal year.
so we're at 175,352 increase next year over this year, which includes $60,000 between computers, licensing, and garbage disposal. 53,000, sorry. Round number. You good with all that?
By that, do you mean, do we understand what you just said, or do we?
Are we good with those being included? I mean, because we're trying to go through this and decide what's gonna be, what we're gonna recommend for her budget for next year, right? Or are we just now reviewing it and we'll do the recommendation next week? Just trying to drive the train forward.
Well, of the increases in the capital, yeah, I would be fine with the 13,000 for the scrap master. I mean, that sounds like that needs to be done, but beyond that, I'm not ready to say yes on the computers and whatnot. But that's just me. And I still think.
And I don't mind giving her that, we gave it to her before and she didn't use it for it, so hopefully she'll,
Do what? I'm sorry?
we gave her money, I thought, for the garbage disposal and she didn't use it for that,
We did?
I thought so. Last year? Didn't she say she used that money for something else?
No, she said she did, and I made the comment, you weren't budgeted for it last year.
Okay.
So you didn't, that wasn't a savings, because she was saying she saved money by not purchasing the garbage disposal this year.
Okay, you're right.
I've heard, oh, go ahead.
We want to take out we have consensus to take out the 33 and the 58 computers and licensing, and put those in the BEP to be considered items.
Well, we made the decision about IT getting computers for everybody. It's been discussed.
Who's it now?
I was gonna say, I'm fixing to make a motion if we can't make a decision on the 33 and the 58,
Well, but
and it's 420.
yeah, I mean, it's more than just that. I mean, the $126,000 increase in M&O, I don't know about anybody else, but like I said the other day, I appreciate we can find savings in a fiscal year, and I don't believe in penalizing the department because they may need that amount the next year. So I don't just arbitrarily say, well, if you spend $50,000 this year, that's all you're gonna need next year. But if you're able to save that kind of money, then explain to me why you need that kind of an increase for the next year. And I just haven't gotten a sufficient answer.
I'm having a hard time following that, because I thought that part of that $93,000 isn't really truly an increase because it was transferred, and so it's...
But it's not spent for M&O this year.
I got you. I got you, it was spent somewhere else. But it truly is 126,000 more, not 126 plus 93.
I don't know. That's what I asked Danny in the beginning, to make sure that that column was, so we are sure that it is the 126.
Yep.
Okay. We done for the day?
Move to adjourn.
When do we recess to?
Whoa. Would you like to?
I didn't get a second, I'm withdrawing my motion. Move to let me out.
Let's, what is, anybody have availability issues going forward with?
Well, we probably have a drop dead of Monday, right?
Yeah, is that the plan to present a recommendation to the budget board next Thursday?
I think so.
Yeah.
Definitely needs to.
Which means we'd have a drop dead of Monday, which means we probably don't want to wait till Monday.
We can put the agenda item on,
Get back together.
have that attachment yet.
I thought we wanted to give budget board enough time to absorb it and not throw it on them at the last minute.
It's always fun to do that.
That's fine.
What does everybody's schedule look like tomorrow?
I'm completely open.
Come up.
Pretty good.
I've got things in the morning I've got to address, but
So we can address the sheriff's budget first thing in the morning.
We'll tackle that in part two.
Well, and maybe once we finish working our way through juvenile, we gotta get to the point that we're either gonna take votes on stuff and include it, or agree that we're only gonna include the stuff that's unanimous and let people take the things individual, and I don't know that we're too in agreement on that part yet.
What time are you unavailable?
I should be due by 10:30 or so.
Do we want to start at 10:30?
Yeah.
Start at 10:30, order pizza and work through lunch and stay in here until we get a budget. If that's Sunday, that's Sunday.
You're funny.
No, I just hear it.
We don't get overtime.
Unbelievable.
I think everybody around the table.
Hey, as long as we get official numbers, we'll have it done by noon, I bet.
Larry got it.
If we get what?
Official numbers, we'll have it done by noon.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn until tomorrow at 10:30?
So move.
Recess tomorrow until 10:30.
Recess.
I meant recess, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I second your amended motion.
All in favor to recess until tomorrow morning, 10:30?
Aye.
See you guys.